how powerful the Umbu were. In the split second that Naruto stopped Kenta from grabbing his sword, the man had already used his free hand to grab a kunai in order to stop him. Naruto let go of his hold on Kenta and backed up so Theman could turn to face him. Kenta let go of the hilt to his sword and slipped his kunai back into its holder as he nodded at the Hokage, agreeing with his leader's statement. He knew he should not have spoken out of turn, but Kenta's curiosity got the best of him. How? Naruto's smile got slightly bigger as he looked down at the sword in his hand, examining its details as he walked back to his scroll. When you used your Gonban Q, there was a split second before I'd destroyed it that I summoned a clone to take my place. I hid in the rubble of the jutsu, and waited for my clone to gain your full attention. Doing so allowed me to slip behind you, where I waited for the opportune moment to strike. Kenta nodded once more, amazed at his leader's quick thinking. Kenta was more of a headstrong person, so he knew if he was in Naruto's position he would have just charged right through. Elephant believed Naruto to be the same kind of person, from the man's earlier reports, but apparently he was wrong. It took some smarts to come up with a plan like that almost instantly. Kenta then got the feeling that if their spar had continued, he would have surely lost. Naruto sealed his sword back into the scroll before raveling it up and slinging it back over his shoulder. The Uzumaki turned to leave, saying, "You're dismissed." Naruto did not have to look to know Kenta was already gone. The Rokudaime Hokage leisurely made his way home, knowing he had a long day ahead of him tomorrow. The chirping of the morning birds woke Sakura from her slumber as her groggy eyes slowly blinked opened. The sunlight from outside shined through her one window and brightened up her room. Pink slowly sat up and rubbed her eyes. She was wearing her pink pajamas that had little red strawberries on them. Her bare feet hit the wooden floor as she got up and walked into her bathroom, putting her hands together and stretching them over her head as she yawned. She looked at herself with half-closed eyes in the mirror hanging above her sink. The left side of her hair was flayed upward because of the way she slept, but a simple shower would solve that problem. She turned to her shower/bath hybrid and turned the shower nozzle on. She left the bathroom for a second to let the water heat up and went over to her calendar on the wall to see what today entailed. It was probably just going to be another boring day at Konoha Hospital. Her eyes nearly jumped out of her head when she saw that today was the day she had circled on the calendar with a big red marker and drawn several arrows pointed at it. A large smile broke across the beautiful Kunoichi's face. Yes. Today's the day. She ran back into her bathroom, nearly diving into her shower as she quickly got ready for the day. She had some packing to do for the trip, but that would not stop her from being the first one to the gates. Today was the day Team 7 would be going to Haru no Kuni to see Princess Koyuki. This meant Sakura would finally get to see Naruto after what felt like ages. Plus they would be getting pretty good pay because it was an A-ranked mission, as any mission dealing with the Hokage leaving the village was treated with high priority. Aside from that, she hoped that it would just be Naruto and her there so they could catch up alone. Kakashi would surely be late by an hour or two, but Sai would probably show up on the dot as he was the most punctual one on the team. This meant as long as Naruto comes a little earlier than they were supposed to meet, then the two of them could catch up and talk. Sakura giggled, excited to see her best friend / Sakura arrived at the gates with her usual attire, pink sleeveless shirt and a tan mini skirt over her short-cut spandex. She also had on boots, gloves, and her pouches and kunai holder. She had on a backpack as she held each strap with a hand. The Harino looked around and did not spot any of her teammates. She figured as much. She had arrived 15 minutes prior to when they were supposed to meet, so it was no surprise. She just shrugged. She moved over to the side of the gate where a couple benches were located, and waited. 15 minutes passed and Naruto had yet to show up, which frustrated Sakura because they were running out of time to talk to one another. Naruto, you idiot. Hurry up and get here. Sai is going to show up soon. Greetings, Sakura-san. Sai came walking up waving with one hand and the other on his hip. His was in his traditional attire, plus the headed backpack for travel. Sakura mentally cursed. Damn it. Speak of the devil. Hey Sai, how are you? They chatted aimlessly for several minutes before going silent as they waited for the other two. As more time passed, neither Naruto nor Kakashi were showing up. And the longer this went on, the more frustrated Sakura got. She could handle Kakashi showing up late, it was what he did. However, after After not seeing her for this long, Naruto wants to show up this late as well. Who the hell does that idiot think he is? Sakura thought to herself as a vein bulged from her forehead. The lip of the bench beneath hair was starting to crack as she continued to squeeze it more and more with her hand. About an hour and a half after they were supposed to meet did Kakashi finally appear, jumping down from a rooftop near Sakura-onsai. He gave them his patent eye smile and waved at them. Yo, sorry, my fish died so I had to hold a memorial in his honor. We already. Sakura crossed her arms and sneered, grumbling, no, Kakashi. Could hear the murderous intent in her voice and sweated a little. Usually she just yelled at him and they would be on their way, but for some reason she was a lot more pissed today. When Kakashi looked around and saw that Naruto was not there, he understood Sai only made it worse by stating the obvious, Naruto-kun is Nathara yet. Sakura's eyebrow twitched when her blonde teammate's name was said. Kakashi smiled behind his mask, chuckling nervously, haha, I'm sure he will be here any second. As if on cue there was a human-sized smoke cloud that popped into existence. Naruto was in his Hokage attire with a backpack on over his sage scroll. The Uzumaki was holding his hands clasped behind his head and smiling so big his eyes were forced close. Long time no see guys. The next thing Naruto knew, there was a fist in his face that sent him tumbling backwards across the ground. Sakura still had her fist extended as she huffed and puffed, having just released all her pent-up anger. You blockhead. We've been waiting almost 2 hours for you to show up. Where have you been? All of a sudden 4 Umbu appeared with their swords pointed at Sakura's neck from different positions, circling her. The Harana squeaked, eep, at the appearance of the Umbu, surprised. She looked around frantically, slightly sweating as it soon dawned on her that she had just cold-cocked the 6th Hokage. The girl was about to start apologizing, but Naruto's voice broke her thoughts. At ease. At ease. It's okay guys, this thing is normal for us. The woman in front of Sakura, who looked like she had a bear mask, moved to the side so Sakura could see a smiling Naruto walking up looking no worse for wear. The blonde was seen pulling his Hokage shat that had been hanging behind his neck onto his head, adjusting it so it was snug. The other Umbu members lowered their weapons at Naruto's words, much to the relief of Sakura as she let out a breath she did not know she was holding. The Harano finally looked at Naruto, and the two made eye contact. The Harano found Naruto's new attire very strange as she still could not believe that Thick Knucklehead was Hokage. Sakura was just happy that even though there were others around, it seemed like the two would catch up anyway. Sakura opened her mouth, smiling as she began to say, "Hey Naruto looked over to his Umbu, telling them, you guys are seed till I get back. Take some days off or something. I don't know, do whatever you guys do when you are not following me." They nodded, trained not to argue with their leader even though they are supposed to trail him outside the village as well. Armadillo and Peacock jumped away, while Bear and Elephant stayed a second to greet Kakashi. "How are you doing, Kakashi Teiko? It has been a while." Kenta greeted, walking up to the man. The once Umbu captain had been reading his porn book since Naruto showed up, so he had to look up to see an old subordinate of his. Even though the man was wearing a mask, Kakashi could still tell who it was from his height. There was only one man that tall, and that bald, in Umbu. "Oh, Kenta-kun, you look great. How are your wife and daughter doing?" Kenta nodded, and Kakashi assumed from the tone of his voice that the man was smiling under his mask. "They're great, thanks for asking. Well, I should be going home. It's not very often the Hokage's guards get time off like this." Kakashi nodded in understanding. The Hatake noticed Bear as Kenta body flickered out of the area, causing him to hide his book behind his back out of instinct. There was an awkward silence between the two before Bear said, "Kakashi. Bye." This time Kakashi had slipped his book back into its pouch, hoping to God Bear did not see it. Knowing his luck she probably did. "Natsumai Teiko." Naruto walked up between the two, asking, "So how do you guys all know each other?" Kakashi sent Naruto a glance, and had to ignore the fact that the Uzumaki was still not looking at him. The Hokage was looking at Bear, but Kakashi answered, "Kenta-kun was one of my subordinates during my time as an Umbu captain. Natsumai was my captain when I first entered Umbu. We have something of a history together." Bear horrified, we were lovers for a time. That made everyone instantly uncomfortable and dumbfounded. Naruto scratched the back of his head sheepishly, immediately regretting his question as he tried changing the subject, saying, well, that's great. I'm so happy you guys could see each other again. Unfortunately we are kind of in a rush, so if you wouldn't mind Natsumi-chan. Natsumi looked at her leader and nodded in understanding. She did not even spare another glance at Kakashi before jumping away. When she was gone, Kakashi let out a breath he did not know he was holding. Phew, that was a close one. That woman scares the hell out of me. Naruto chuckled as he walked by his sensei. Yeah, she can be a bit scary. Now, is everyone ready to go? Sakura watched on from a distance in silence, shocked that Naruto had completely disregarded her this entire time. Had he just not feared her before, or was there something more? It had been almost a month since the two actually talked to one another. Maybe he was mad at her because the first thing she did after so long was punch him. She cursed at herself for being so stupid and hot-headed. The Harino had to shake her head to compose herself as her teammates were already making their way out of the village. She quickly caught up to them, trailing behind all of them as Naruto was the one in the lead. Several hours passed as they were now jumping from branch to branch through the trees on their way to Haru no Kuni. Everyone was silent for most of the travel. Sakura and Kakashi wanted to talk to Naruto, but neither knew how to start up a conversation with Themon. Sakura was having far more trouble because Naruto was mad at her in her mind. Kakashi was just struggling to come up with ideas as an icebreaker, not thinking of anything good for a conversation starter. The two noticed that Sai was starting to jump a little faster to Naruto, blatantly aiming to talk to the man. They mentally thanked the boy for his ineptability to read the awkward situation as they moved slightly closer so they could hear the two. Sai moved up beside the Uzumaki as they continued to glide through the air. So Naruto-kun, why were you so late? That's unlike you. Sai would have normally used a more formal term when talking to Hokage, but in a recent book he read, it said that those you were close to would more often than not allow you to address them informally. The Hokage sent Sai a glance before reverting his attention forward to watch where he was going. When he said nothing about how Sai had to address him, the artist was glad that what he read was true. Oh, that's because I knew Kakashi-sensei would be an hour or two late. I figured I could better use my time doing paperwork than waiting for him, so I decided to show up in between the time I thought he would show up. Looks like it paid off. Well, except for getting my head knocked off. Sakura and Kakashi's heads dropped as it felt like anvils made of guilt landed on them. Kakashi's anvil was because he for once regretted being late, and Sakura's because he was mad about erections. The two's ears perked back up as Sai continued the conversation. So what are we traveling to Haru no Kuni for? Well, I intend to ask the daimyo for assistance in the recovery of Konoha. I know her personally, but she still wants me to come out to her home before we make anything official. She has some sort of request for me to be in one of her movies that she makes on the side apart from her traditional duties as daimyo. I don't really know what that entails, but we will find out when we get there. As long as she agrees to help us, I don't really care what I have to do to appease her. Sai nodded, knowing from his experience with Danza that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Sai was happy that Naruto understood this as Hokage, willing to indulge some daimyo from a lesser country in order to gain their support and aid in re-establishing Konoha as the strongest. On the other hand, Kakashi and Sakura were surprised to hear this from Naruto of all people. All they ever heard coming out his mouth was the fact that he would Oneda be Hokage, but now that he was, they never imagined that he would be able to understand its responsibilities. As if sensing their surprise, Naruto turned his head to the side, looking off in the distance as he spoke to the two behind him. Sakura and Kakashi could see that he was smiling, but it was very crestfallen. Did you guys really think that I just blatantly proclaimed that I was going to be Hokage without truly knowing what was required? I've been groomed to be a Hokage since I began wanting to be a ninja. Even though the others did not know it, Naruto was talking about his relationship with the Sandaime Hokage from when he was young. Another anvil hit the two's heads as even more guilt washed over them. For the rest of the journey no one really talked to Naruto again. He mostly stayed ahead of everyone, and when they pitched a camp for the night he was off by himself. They talked amongst themselves about their latest news, but other than that it was mostly awkward silence between them and their Hokage. Kakashi had balled up at one point and talked to Naruto, but it was just formal speech. The Hokage had asked for more details pertaining to the mission, but Naruto did not really have much more to give. Naruto never once looked at his sensei, much to Kakashi's indignation. Sakura had stayed the furthest from the Rokudaime, not knowing what to say. After realizing how much she cared for Naruto as a friend, she did not want to go about saying something stupid that could jeopardize their friendship. The man was obviously angry at her for her actions, and she did not want to upset him even further. She stayed quiet for the rest of the voyage, hoping that time would quell the man's irritation. Team 7 arrived in Haru-no-Kuni within the next couple of days, greeted by an entourage of bodyguards who served Princess Koyuki. They brought the team to the rebuilt Kazahana Castle located in the center of Yokogakure, the slowly rebuilding ninja village. On their way to the building, they saw how much Haru-no-Kuni had prospered and changed from the once known Yuki-no-Kuni. There was no longer any snow in sight, but lush green grass and meadows full of different colored flowers. Ever since the land of snow became the land of spring, it had barely snowed. It would every once in a while, but not to the point it used to where it would cover the landscape in its white powder. Yokogakure was a very small village, so much so that it could be considered a town. However, their assistance would be very helpful in rebuilding Konoha. There were very few Yuki ninjas spotted amongst the rooftops, each one wearing a less bulky version of the chakra armor that had once given the old Team 7 so much trouble in their younger years. Naruto doubted that there were even over 20 ninja in Yokogakure. Most of which were probably not even Chiryunin level, let alone Jounin. Themen escorting them were probably also part of Yokogakure's military, as they looked like warriors, but they were obviously not ninja, so they posed next to no threat at all. They followed Koyuki's warriors through Kazahana Castle, coming upon two grand doors leading to the throne room. They were slowly pushed open by several of the men, revealing a humongous throne room befitting a daimyo. There were a number of marble pillars parallel to one another lining each side of the room, with a long red carpet stretching the length of the room. The carpet reached all the way to the throne chair. The guards beckoned for them to go on themselves, and they did. It was quite a walk through the massive room as they got closer to the throne. As they got closer, they could make out several people standing beside the chair and a certain someone sitting lackadaisically in the chair. When they were but a couple yards from the throne, they could make out Princess Koyuki as she got up from her chair, smiling brightly as she scampered over to them in her multi-shaded blue dress. The ninja in chakra armor on either side of throne called out her name, but she ignored them. Naruto-kun. The rest of Team 7 looked on in shock as the daimyo of Haru-no-Kuni nearly tackled their Hokage in a hug. Although Naruto had not been expecting it, he was taking the sudden embracement a lot better than his teammates. I haven't seen you in forever. You look amazing. Naruto smiled, returning the woman's hug before pulling back so they could look at one another. Normally he would have said that she'll okayed exactly the same, because in all honesty she did, but he was trying to appease a daimyo here, so he instead said, "Thank you. You look great yourself, Koyuki-hime." Koyuki continued to look up and down Naruto's figure, a light blush coming over her cheeks. She just could not believe how much he had changed. She had to actually look up to meet his eyes, and he had become even more handsome than she had imagined. She was really glad she had told her producer to hold off until she found their right guy. Koyuki let go of the hug, turning and walking back to her chair as she ducked. It is great to see you all after so long. However, we have much to do tomorrow, and I know you all must be tired from your long journey. Get some rest. She looked over to the ninja at her left, ordering, "Shiro-kun, please show our guests to their quarters." "Right away, madam." Shiro nodded and walked over to the group of Konohanin. The man had long, flowing, snow-white hair that reached to the middle of his back. His eyes were a pale green. Themen was clad in very slim purple chakra armor with the yin-yang orb, the source of the armor's power, located in the middle of his chest. The man's Yokogakure headband was a mask type of forehead protector that greatly resembled the other Team 7 leader, Yamato. He must have had on some eyeliner or something, because the bags under the man's eyes were a dark shade of purple. Upon closer inspection, his fingernails and toenails, seen by his open-toed purple ninja sandals, were also dark lavender. The man was probably in his early 20s. The guy was quite tall, being about half a foot taller than Kakashi. Something about the man worried Naruto, but he said nothing about it. "Hold on one second. Naruto said, gaining everyone's attention. I just wanted to know what my role and lines in the movie were so I could, you know, kind of practice. The rest of his team agreed, interested in the man's part. Naruto's swords made Koyuki's smile grow even bigger. Oh Naruto-kun, you didn't really have any words at all. Her statement made everyone on Team 7 confused. Then she elaborated, all you have to do is take Emi virginity. Everyone, except for Sai, from the Leaf Convoy's jaws nearly broke through the carpet and marble flooring / that wench intends to bed with Konoha's new Hokage. A feminine voice called out within the dark cavern in a hidden location beneath Yukagaku or no Sato. There was a small orb sitting on a pedestal within the cave. It was the only form of light in the cavern, casting a very small amount of purple light throughout the lair. Everyone within the hideout was hidden in the shadows. Another figure hidden in the dark scoffed. This one was also female. Shut the hell up, Amaya. That's our daimyo Dano you are talking about. Fuck. You Fubuki. Bitch, you're even worse than her. At least you had some dignity when you were Doto's whore, whatever little there is. Amaya shot back, emerging from the darkness and into that purple light. She had pitch black hair that was tied back in a ponytail with long bangs framing the sides of her face. Her eyes were an onyx color. There was a small scar to the right of her chin. She was clad in chakra armor like most Yukagaku or ninja, except hers was the female version, leaving room for her chest. Her armor was a dark blue color and the chakra orb was located over her abdomen. Her headband was sewn into the cloth of her armor, just below the power orb. The woman was 25. Fubuki walked into the light, smiling at her associate haughtily. You better watch that ugly tone of yours. You'll send all the men you meet running, pig. Fubuki was in a newer version of her old chakra armor from 4 years ago when she had first crossed paths with Team 7. It still had the contractable wings attached to its back and the orb of power was located on her waist, but it was a more modern version of her light blue chakra armor. She had green eyes and pink hair that stuck out the 2 holes on the top of her gray helmet. The helmet left her face completely uncovered and had the metal plate with the Yukagaku symbol on it sewn into the space above her forehead. Fubuki was now 27. Amaya sneered, come over here so I can kill you, you slut. The third member of their party walked into the light. You children nowadays are so disrespectful. So uncivilized. This man was obviously elderly as he had a long white beard that reached to the bottom of his chest before splitting into 2 down the middle and carving back around on itself. He had big bushy white eyebrows that seemed too heavy for him to even keep his eyes open. He was completely bald and very petite, smaller than either of the girls. Even though he looked very fragile hunched over a makeshift cane made purely of ice that looked to be the only thing holding him up, he was still clad in dark blue chakra armor. The yin-yang orb was located over his left shoulder and his forehead protector was tied like a bandana around his bald scalp. You want to die too, old man? Amaya asked threateningly. Fubuki crossed her arms under her chest, looking at Amaya in disgust. Stop picking on Daichi, you so uncivilized. The elder known as Daichi said once again. A fourth voice caught everyone's attention, surprising them by his sudden appearance. That is enough. All of you. This voice was cold and detached. The 3 immediately turned to the voice's location and bowed their heads as the man materialized from the shadows, each one saying, Shiro-sama. The man continued past his subordinates till he was in front of the pedestal in the middle of their lair, at ease. The other 3 walked up beside their leader, peering into the purple orb as the substance within the sphere contorted, revealing a slumbering Team 7. Shiro's gaze landed on the Rokyudame Hokage and the man furrowed his brow. So this is the team that killed my brother, Nadare. Fubuki looked at Shiro, explaining, the one with a mask on his face, Sharinon no Kakashi. That's the man that killed your brother. The Hokage was a genin the last I saw him. I can't believe an idiot like him became the strongest nation's leader. He and Uchiha Sasuke are the ones who stopped Doto 4 years ago. Uchiha Sasuke? Amaya questioned, remembering that name. He's the man that defected from Konohagaku and killed Orochimaru of the Sunin, and Uchiha Itachi, making him the last surviving Uchiha. Thank God he's not on their team anymore. He'd probably be the biggest threat among them. Fubuki nodded silently, actually agreeing with the other female. She could still remember how hard the Uchiha's kicks were in the past and he was only 12 at the time. The eldest of them scoffed at their naivete, saying, "So uncivilized." "You're both wrong. The biggest threat here is Hatake Kakashi. I have personally seen that man in action. He is ferocious on the battlefield and a seasoned ninja. He is unforgiving and will not hesitate to strike you down. You're all wrong." Shiro's voice gained everyone's attention as he pointed to the image of a sleeping Uzumaki Naruto. "This boy is the biggest threat. None of us have any idea how strong he is, which makes him the most dangerous. Konoha would not pick some idiot to be their Hokage. There is obviously a reason he was picked." Fubuki cupped her chin, trying to think of any recent news she heard pertaining to an Uzumaki Naruto. She was the most informed among her cohorts, so she would be the first to know. She thought she had heard of the name recently, but could not put her finger on what it entailed. Amaya glanced at her leader asking, "Well, why don't we just move our plan back a couple of days? Those leaf ninja won't be here for very long." Shiro's eyes slowly turned to meet Amaya's, and as soon as they did, the girl felt an immense amount of killer intent hit her. He spoke in a cold tone, "I have already told you all, tomorrow is the only time we can commence our plans. Tomorrow is the day of the full moon and the first of winter. Tomorrow is the only day of the year that will allow us to return Yokogakure to its former glory. Do you understand me?" Amaya was sweating by now, slowly caving under the man's hate. "Why yes, Shiro-sama." Shiro cancelled the orb's power as he turned to leave, walking towards the exit. "It does not matter. No matter who gets in our way, nothing can stop us. I am far stronger than Nadare and that full doto. By this time tomorrow, I will be the strongest ninja in the world. And by then I will no longer need these fools. I will show the world, brother, the power of the Ragas." The Raga brothers were together, surrounded by the snow-white land around them. Snow trickled from the heavens in a constant pace that had earned their land the name of Yuki no Kuni. The landscape around them had been somewhat misshapen thanks to the two's battle. A 15-year-old Shiro was standing triumphantly over his older brother, completely untouched and not fatigued in the slightest. On the other hand, a 21-year-old Nadare was on his back in the snow, panting heavily and covered in sweat despite the cold climate. Neither one was in chakra armor as it had yet to be invented. They were instead in some bulky ninja attire that was made to leave them agile, but able to compensate for the rigid environment they lived in. Nadare was looking up to his brother with one eye shut in exhaustion, his long, pale, pink hair matted down to his head and forehead protector in sweat. "Marvelous, brother." Shiro had the tiniest of smirks appear on his visage. The boy backed up a little and helped his brother up, slinging one of Nadare's arms over his shoulders as the older brother was too exhausted to go hum on his own power. In Shiro's silence, Nadare had more words of praise. "You are by far the greatest shinobi to ever be produced from Yokogakure. A prodigy among prodigies. You can be compared to such geniuses as Uchiha Itachi and Yagura of the Three Tails, and I am very confident in saying that even they would not be a match for you." His brother's words brought Shiro an even bigger smile. Nadare continued, saying, "You will do great things in this world, little brother." Shiro looked at his brother, and shook his head in the negative. "We'll do great things in this world, brother." Kakashi, Sai, and Sakura were sitting in steel folding chairs watching everyone around the stage set move about like working bees, getting everything ready for the upcoming sex scene. The director was in one of those tall wooden director's chair that had the man's name printed across the back. He, along with the large camera beside him, were the closest ones to the set-up bed in the middle of the room. The man had on a red beret hat, and had what could only be described as a porn mustache. He was in a gray, turtleneck sweatshirt with red straps that attached to the waistband of his khaki pants, which was way too high up on his large gut. Lastly, he had on black shoes that curled in on themselves at the end like an elf's. It was a very odd get-up the man had, but no one seemed to be complaining. Princess Koyuki was in an upright position on the bed. She was completely naked, only covered by the sheets that hung over the top of her chest. She waited with bated eyes for her hero to come through the double doors on one of the walls of the stage. This scene would be the final one of the third Ika movie, thus ending the trilogy. Originally it was only going to be one movie, but Koyuki never wanted to lose her virginity to any of the porn stars the director hired, which was supposed to be the ending. Because of this they changed it up and gave her more time to decide by creating a trilogy. Luckily it worked out and she was getting what she and her director wanted. The perfect ending to an amazing trilogy. Sakura looked on in irritation. She had not got much sleep last night, if any at all. All she could think about was Naruto, and the fact that they was actually going to have sex with Koyuki just so they would help Konoha. She was still upset about what she did to him when they reunited, but now she was starting to get mad at Naruto. She did not know why. Maybe because she had not even had her first kiss yet, but this idiot was already somehow about to lose his virginity. Or maybe it was because she thought that their intercourse could bloom into something more, which would take him even further from her, and that was something she did not want. She did not want them to be with a woman like that, because then she could not be as close to him as she wanted. If he was in a relationship with a woman, then their close relationship would make that woman jealous and think that Sakura was trying to take him from her, which she definitely would not be doing. However, Sakura was a woman and understood that she would feel the same way if her boyfriend was best friends with a female. That is why she did not want Naruto to grow attached to any woman, at least not yet. The Harino knew it was selfish to think like that, but she could not help it. She just needed to talk to him, just once. There were plenty of other circumstances that Sakura came up with in her sleepless night, and no once did she build enough courage to go talk to Naruto. She did not want him to go through with this, and she wanted to apologize for her actions. Nothing was going her way. Kakashi on the other hand was having the time of his life. This wash be far a dream come true. He felt like a giddy kid in a candy shop. He was on the set for the final movie of the Ika Ika trilogy. The Haytake had already seen the first two movies more times than he could count, and now he got to finally see its climax, pun intended. To top it all off, his own student would be the one to lay the virgin Princess Yuki in bed. This could not be any better. The trained Jounin let out another perverted giggle by accident for the umpteenth time, getting a heated look from the female on his team and a confused one from Side. On the other side of the setup stage, Naruto was standing with atoll wrapped around his waist. Aside from that, he was butt naked. He was never shy in his life, so he knew this was not going to be too difficult. The Uzumaki did think it was weird that his teammates were staying to watch though. Sai stayed because he was probably curious about the art of sex. Kakashi was just a pervert, so Naruto was not surprised in the slightest that he wanted to watch. However, the fact that Sakura was going to watch did sort of embarrass him and made him wonder why she was. The Uzumaki did not let it get to him though. He had to do this for the people of Konoha, so this was a very small sacrifice. It is not like he even had his virginity anymore, so what was the big deal? Naruto was knocked out of his thoughts as he noticed Koyuki's personal bodyguard, Shiro, walking up to him. The Uzumaki turned to him, asking somewhat rudely, "Can I help you?" Shiro remained stoic and lifted his hand up, showing Naruto that he was holding a blue gel pill. "This is medicine that Koyuki-sama wished for me to give you. It will let you last far longer in bed than normally possible." Naruto looked down at the pill with a straight face, and then back up to Shiro. The two stared at one another for what felt like an eternity. Shiro then felt something wet cascade down the side of his face. Hello okayed out the corner of his eyes and realized that what he felt was a bead of sweat. His eyes slightly widened as he looked back to the Rokyudame Hokage. The Raga's eyes widened even further. Even though Shiro was at least a foot taller than the Hokage, he could not help but feel dwarfed by the man standing in front of him. All Shiro saw was a gigantic shadow of a person with spiky hair and solid red eyes towering over him, about to crush him with hands that engulfed his entire body. The white-haired man's breathing hitched as he felt pressure crushing him vanish. Naruto was now smiling at Theman as he took the pill from Shiro's shaking hand. "Thanks." Shiro continued to stare at Naruto as he slowly controlled his breathing. The Uzumaki put the pill in his mouth and made a gulping sound, signifying he had swallowed it. Shiro returned to his stoic facade, or as best he could, as he said, "You're welcome, Uzumaki-san. Well then I will be going." He turned around as soon as he finished his sentence, not wanting to stay there any longer. He would have checked to make sure the man had ate the pill, but Shiro had never felt a sensation like that in his life, and it was not something he enjoyed. As Shiro turned the corner, he gripped the cloth of his chakra armor over his heart with one hand, and the other went tourist against the back of the stage's wall, using it as a prop to hold him up in his fatigue. What the fuck was that? The white-haired Jounin did not know what to make of Naruto. Though, he did know one thing. He was now damn sure giving that man that pill was Otis move. That man surely could have thrown a wrench into their plans. However, thanks to the pill, the Rokyudame Hokage would be nothing more than a potato in an hour's time. Naruto had watched until Shiro turned the corner before spitting the pill out onto the ground and stomping on it. He glared at the corner where Shiro turned, planning to find out what was going on after he was done with his previous arrangements. "Hiro, get on in here." The director's voice boomed from the other side of the doors. The man was using a megaphone from the sound off it. Naruto breathed in and let out a breath, mumbling to himself, "Welp, that's my cue." Naruto emerged on set as his teammates watched from afar. Kakashi did a wolf whistle at the sight of his naked student, and then proceeded to spin his fist around in the air, going, "Woot woot woot woot." Because of his recent training, Naruto had gained a bit more muscle. He was not very muscular per se, but he was lean. He had a faded six-pack that only appeared when he exhaled, and he had athletic-looking arms and shoulders. It also helped that he washed glistening from all the oil the makeup artists lathered on him. Naruto sent his sensei a conspicuous glance, wanting him to shut up. All of other actors and movie people watching did not seem to pay the Konoha Jounin any mind. Sakura rubbed her temples at her sensei's actions, also wanting him to shut up. He made this so much more awkward than it needed to. Sakura tried to secretly get a peek of Naruto through her fingers, not wanting him to see her looking and think too much into it. Her cheeks got a little pink, seeing how naked her teammate was. She told herself to man up as the pervert in her got the best of her, wanting to see just how well endowed her teammate was. If at all, truth be told, she had actually never seen a penis in real life before. She had seen it in medical books, yes, but never a real one. She was very careful when she worked at the hospital, knowing that patients often wore nothing but a gown. She was always cautious, and often asked for the nurses to do something if she was afraid she might see something she did not want to. They always obliged, thinking that her innocence was too cute. However, this was her teammate and best friend, so it was not the grossest outcome. It was still very gross because it was Naruto, but not as nasty as seeing some random guy's penis. She could only imagine what Sasuke's was like. It was probably perfect, just like the rest of him. Sai just stared on passively with a notepad and pen in hand. The director put the megaphone back to his chapped lips. "Alright there, hero, let's see what you got. Take off the towel." Naruto reached for the towel around his waist and began to untuck it. When Sakura saw this, her face immediately became as red as a tomato. She instantly covered her eyes and ran towards the exit, barreling through people as she realized she was not ready for this. Kakashi watched the girl leave with a sly smile under his mask, while Sai did not even pay her any mind. Naruto and everyone else did not even notice as the Uzumaki dropped the towel. The director dropped his megaphone onto the ground as everyone's head tilted further to the right with each word said. "Oh my god." Kakashi was instantly standing on his chair, holding up a victory sign in the air, and his eye had suddenly turned into a giant yellow star that shined with pride. "That's my student." Sai was already taking notes. Guess he really does have a penis. Koyuki's eyes widened as they started to sparkle. A grin broke across her face. Oh yeah, she had defiantly picked the right person. Sakura was sitting by herself at the end of a pier, her boots beside her and feet in the water. It was starting to get dark as the sun was minutes away from falling under the horizon. The Harino had found this lake almost an hour ago, not far from the building her team was in. She enjoyed the peace and quietness it brought her. She sighed for the umpteenth time, thinking mostly about Naruto, and of course Isashik-kun. The Harino then sensed a chakra signature behind her. She did not make to move, trying to see if she could tell who it was without looking. As it got closer, she was surprised to find that it was Naruto. Her heartbeat started to pick up as she was thinking of things to say. The next thing she knew, Naruto was sitting beside her on the opposite side of her boots, his bare feet in the water. She was leaning back on her arms at the time, so when she glanced over at them she could see everything. He was in a plain white t-shirt and Milan orange pants. He did not have on his forehead protector, so his spiky hair came down to the top of his eyes. She did not see any hose around, so he probably came over barefoot. Naruto just stared out over the lake quietly. This was by far the most awkward Sakura had felt since seeing the Uzumaki again. She wanted to just blurt out an apology, but nothing sounded right. The Haruno opened her mouth to get herself to speak, but nothing came out. She could not think of anything to say, and she was choking at probably the only time she would get to see him. I'm sorry. Sakura's mind had nearly exploded because she was not one who just apologized. Naruto was. The pinkette just stared baffled at the knucklehead. What? Naruto turned his head and closed his eyes, scratching the back of his head with one of his free hands, sheepishly smiling. Well, Sakura-chan has just been so distant the entire time and hasn't talked to me. I figured you were still angry about me arriving late like Kakashi-sensei. Sakura just continued to stare at the blonde in disbelief. So this entire time they were not talking was because they both thought that one was mad at the other. She was such an idiot. Of course Naruto would not be mad at her. After all these years, when has Naruto ever been mad at her? Next to never, so for her to think he would get heated over something like this was stupid. He was her best friend, something like this was trivial. The Haruno came to this realization a bit too slowly as Naruto was waving his hand in front of her stunned face, calling out her name in worry. She shook her head to clear out the cobwebs, and smiled at the man. Well, far be it from her not to use this as her advantage. Apology accepted. Naruto. So how have you been, becoming Hokage and all? Naruto turned back to the lake and his face became a lot more serene. It's actually pretty awesome. There's a lot of boring paperwork, but I knew that was one of the cons of the job. However, the pros outweigh the cons by a long shot. Sakura nodded. She would have wanted to know more in detail about the pros and cons, but there was something else she was curious about. That's good. So how did you even get picked? Naruto chuckled nervously and scratched the back of his head once more, still looking at the lake. I kind of barged into the council meeting and demanded I be made Hokage. Sakura punched him in the shoulder softly, smiling at the idiot's antics. Oh my god, Naruto. What the hell is wrong with you? Do you know how much trouble you could have been in? Naruto smiled back, bumping shoulders with the girl as his form of retaliation. Hey, you've got to assert yourself sometimes. He puffed up his chest dramatically as he tried to deepen his voice. It's what makes me a man. Sakura just shook her head at the moron beside her, a pleasant smile on her face. Do you even know what assert means? The two chuckled at the joke before falling into silence for a short period. Some time passed and the two sat in silence, enjoying Theodor's company. The sun was now long gone and the moon was in the sky, surrounded by packs of stars. Sakura looked over at Naruto and noticed the beaded bracelets around both his wrists. She had not even noticed them before now. Hey Naruto, what are those on your wrists? Naruto glanced over at Sakura after hearing her talk, and then down to his wrists as he turned his hands over so the palms were facing the sky. They are chakra weights I bought a little while back. They're to help with my taijutsu training. Naruto lifted his white t-shirt up to show the Haruno the weights he had strapped to his abdomen. I got to get stronger if I intend to save Sasuke. That statement surprised Sakura. Even now that Moron was still hell-bent on saving Sasuke, he had an entire village to oversee, and has still thought about the last of the Uchiha. Sakura knew Naruto was her best friend, but this just took the cake. She wrapped her arm around Naruto's as he let go of his shirt. Her actions surprised the young Hokage as he looked down to meet her eyes. Her face was less than a foot from his and she looked so serene, eyes half closed and a sly smile on her face. Naruto blushed a little when he heard Sakura say, Naruto, I have something to tell you. The Uzumaki got a little redder as Sakura leaned into his arm, getting closer to him, but he said nothing. Sakura's face immediately lit up as she said loudly, You're the best friend a girl could have. The Haruno moved away from the man after telling him her secret. She was smiling happily, kicking around the water at her feet. Naruto was glad the Haruno was no longer looking at him, or she would have noticed the saddened expression on his face. I guess that's all I can be to you, huh, Sakura-chan. Naruto looked back over the lake with a straight face. He heard Sakura's kicking calm down but thought nothing of it until she asked, So what's it like? Hearing her voice, Naruto looked back to the girl. Noticing she was changing her head so her hair shadowed most of her face, and her hands were held together in her lap. What's what like? The Pinkette mumbled something that Naruto could kind of pick up because of his heightened senses. He got a little flushed at what she said, but had to be sure. What did you say? The girl said it again, but barely an octave higher. However, Naruto could hear it clear as day. He said it bluntly, being his usually abrasive self, sex. The entire girl's body seemed to seize up at the word. She raised her head ever so slightly, letting Naruto see that deep crimson across her cheeks. The Uzumaki realized how awkward this must have been for her, so he turned back to the lake looking to lessen the embarrassment. He leaned back on his arm saw as he decided to look up into the sky instead. It's nice. When Sakura heard that Naruto was actually going to tell her, she lifted her head more and looked at him, glad he was looking elsewhere. Asking Naruto of all people about sex was probably the single most embarrassing thing she had ever done, but she was just too curious. So you actually went through with it? Naruto's eyes did not move from the sky. Of course I did. It's what was needed for Konoha to gain their support. Sakura was quietly upset for multiple reasons. However, she understood that as Hokage, Naruto had to do things for the betterment of their village. She had to mentally scoff, still not used to Naruto being Hokage. By now her feet were crossed under her and she was completely turned towards Naruto as she continued to stare at the side of his face, again asking, weren't you at least a little upset that you had to lose your virginity like that? Naruto raised an eyebrow, smirking playfully. Whoever said I still had my virginity before then? Deep crimson appeared on Sakura's cheeks, shocked by this revelation. There was absolutely no way that the dropout of the academy had already had sex twice, while she, a young and attractive woman, was still a kiss-less virgin. What? From Sakura's expression, Naruto could kind of figure out the girl's thought pattern and could not help but enjoy this. Come on Sakura-chan, I was with Jiraiya, the self-proclaimed super pervert. Let's just say that I lost my virginity several times in my travels with him. Sakura's world was slowly shattering at that news. So Naruto, the most childish guy she knew, out of their whole generation, had the most experience when it came to the most mature act one could perform. What was her life coming to? Several minutes passed while Sakura calmed herself. Getting her courage back, the Harino asked, still intrigued, so how does it feel? A small smile broke across the Uzumaki's face as he remembered his experience with Koyuki, and the times before her. I'm sure the experience is a whole lot different between males and females, but I am also sure it's pleasant for both. Naruto could not help but add, no, I enjoyed it. Just. The thought of Naruto having sex made Sakura recoil as she let out a small, ew. Her actions made the Uzumaki chuckle. He continued on. Although if you were to do it with someone you truly loved, then I'm positive it would be one of the greatest experiences of your life. Sakura. Eyes shifted towards the lake as she used her hand to hold up her head. A smile crossed her lips as she thought about her Sasuke-kun. Yes, Sasuke-kun would be great. Then she giggled. I bet he's huge. Naruto had to stop himself from vomiting, not wanting to hear any more of this. He had his heart hurt earlier by Sakura's words of friendship, and he did not need to hear about her perverted thoughts in Sasuke and his genitalia. The Uzumaki abruptly got up, much to Sakura's confusion. Naruto. Where are you going? Naruto was already walking down the dock back to shore. We've been here for almost an hour, Sakura-chan. I think it is time to go back. I'm ready to get back to Konoha. Sakura thought it was strange Naruto so abruptly ruined their bonding moment, but knew that he was Hokage and was probably nervous being away from their village for so long. Plus the Uzumaki was quite coarse when it came to reading the situation, so it did not surprise her that he suddenly cut off their time together. The Harina got back up and began putting her boots on. As she was slipping, the second one on the earth began to shake. An explosion off in the distance erupted as smoke trailed into the sky. Naruto squinted as he peered over the treetops and roofs of the sparsely placed buildings. The Uzumaki's eyes widened as he realized where it was coming from. He looked over to Sakura as she came jogging up. Come on. That's where they are filming the movie. Naruto jumped away with Sakura following closely behind / Kakashi coughed into his arm, surrounded by thick smog created from the previous explosion that had destroyed the building around them. The Hokage pulled his headband up to uncover his Sharingan as he scanned the area for survivors. Sigh. The boy's voice was heard through a fit of coughs. Overheard Kakashi-sensei. The Sharingan wielder spotted his subordinate through the smoky and made his way over there. The Jounin walked up to the kneeling boy and helped him up. Sigh. Can you make one of your flying artworks so we can get an aerial view of the situation? The trained root member was already pulling out his supplies. Not a problem. After completing the detailed bird's eye held the scroll out forward. Ninpo, Kojojiga. The drawing emerged from the scroll and became life-size as it swooped around and scooped Kakashi and Sai up into its wings. The creature flew straight up and out the plume of dark smoke. Thetwo stood on the back of the bird as they looked over the disappearing smoke. Kakashi glared down at the destruction silently as Sai asked, "Who could have done this?" Kakashi's sense of danger suddenly kicked in as he felt something coming for them. The Hokage looked up and saw a barrage of Senbon coming for them. Kakashi grabbed Sai's shoulder. "Sai, move." The boy did as he was told, commanding his drawing to execute evasive maneuvers as it barrel rolled to the left. They dodged the attic before coming to a standstill, looking across from them and spotting a large, navy, sparrow that was twice the size of Sai's bird. On its back were 4 people, one of which was holding a woman in a gown. Kakashi's Sharingan eye widened at seeing who it was. They have Princess Koyuki. Shiro was stoically standing on the top of the sparrow's head. An unconscious Koyuki held bridal style in his arms. His 3 subordinates behind him were looking on with smiles on their faces. The leader looked over at Fubuki. "Deal with them." The pink-haired woman nodded as the rest of her teammates disappeared via Shunshin. "Shaw, go." The summoning named Shaw caught before arching its wings back and then flapping them forward as numerous amounts of razor-sharp feathers flew at the 2 Konohanin. Sai's bird was already in the process of swerving around the attack, dodging the feathers left and right. However, Sai and Kakashi noticed that the attack was getting closer, and it would not be long before their ride was destroyed. Kakashi began forming hand seals before putting his fingers to his lips. "Katon, Gokakyu no Jutsu." A searing hot fireball spouted from Kakashi's mouth and raced towards the oncoming feathers, consuming them all and burning them to a crisp. The fireball continued its path and would have collided with Fubuki had her summoning not flown around it. Kakashi cancelled his jutsu as he took his hand from his mouth and took in a breath. Sai told his summoning to land on an untouched building away from the explosion site a few hundred feet below them. Sai looked up to Kakashi from his knelt position. "Kakashi-san, it would be most wise for you to pursue the others. I will handle things here." The Sharingan wielder nodded in response. "Good luck." The Hokage jumped away, having already found the other kidnappers. The bird took off into the sky until it was across from Fubuki and her summoning, which had yet to move from their spot. When Sai saw that Fubuki was not chasing after Kakashi, he decided to take things elsewhere so no more destruction would befall the small village. He flew off in the opposite direction with Fubuki hot on his tail. / Koyuki awoke to find herself pinned to the ground by several rods stabbed through her loose gown and into the grassy ground. She pulled at her clothing, but could barely move an inch from all the objects holding her down. Koyuki looked around and noticed she was where Naruto had defeated Doto several years back, as there were large towering mirrors that rose up into the sky surrounding her in the left, right, and below her. When she picked up her head to look down, she saw Shiro sitting on a rock with his head hung elbows on his kneecaps, and his hands held together. Because off-man's long white hair a shadow was cast over his face. At seeing her strongest shinobi, Koyuki smiled. "Shiro-kun, you'll come to the rescue once again." Shiro's dark voice instantly washed away Koyuki's smile and eloquence of rescue. "Not this time, princess." What are you talking about?" Koyuki asked in worry, surprised Bithy's new Shiro. "So it's finally happening." The man picked his head up, meeting the daimyo's eyes with his icy green orbs. "It is time I returned Yukigakure to its former glory." Koyuki got upset by Shiro's words and actions as everything that had transpired before she was kidnapped started coming back to her. Filming with Naruto, him leaving to find his teammate, and then the explosion. "What the hell are you going on about?" "I'm not surprised someone like you wouldn't understand. You are not a ninja after all." Shiro stood from his position and turned it so his back was facing Koyuki as he began to walk away. You see Koyuki-sama, all the ninja of Yokagaku are Hayaton users. This means we use ice and snow to fight for us. However, the ninja of Yokagaku cannot create ice out of thin air. To have such an ability one would need a Kekii Genkai. Now, this wasn't much of a problem some years ago before you came into power, and back when Haru no Kuni was actually Yuki no Kuni. However, after you overthrew Doto you somehow managed to change the entire atmosphere of our land. So now instead of it snowing every day off year, it barely snows even once. Yokagaku has become the lugging stock of all other nations. And do you know why? Koyuki stayed silent as she had never even heard Shiro get this heated. The man continued as he stopped in front of the middle mirror that towered over him, his voice carrying over to her. It's because Yokagaku and her ninja are no longer able to use jutsu because there is no snow. Koyuki remained silent. She just did not know what to say. Yes, Shek knew that without the snow that once layered itself over Haru no Kuni that her ninja could no longer use their jutsu, but no one ever complained. At least no one that she knew about. She asked him anything, then what do you intend to do? She heard him scoff. I have already told you Koyuki-sama. I'm returning Yokagaku to its former glory. After saying that have vanished before landing all the way on top of the mirror he was previously standing in front of Dut from Koyuki's angle it looked like the full moon was perfectly aligned above the middle mirror and if Shiro just put his hand up he could probably touch it. Even being so far away, she could see that he was going through hand seals. As the white-haired man went through seals, the mirrors held the reflection of the moon within them all. The mirrors then began to glow a pale white, and so did Shiro. The man's previous words then sent a chill down Koyuki's spine as the air around her started to drop in temperature, and she realized just what was about to happen. Shiro looked up into the sky, the moon hanging over him as he held the last hand seal of the sequence. Pitch black clouds were starting to form in the sky, bulking up and growing larger, but never covering any part of the full moon. Finally the night on the first day of winter when the moon would perfectly align with that of the Isumura, ice mirrors, and give him the power to return the essence of what Yuki no Kuni was once known for, Hayaton, Kosetsu, / Kakashi, was jumping through treetops at breakneck speed to catch up to Koyuki's kidnappers. His headband was once again covering his Sherinanas to preserve chakra and strength. As he was gliding along he noticed the dark clouds overhead that seemed to originate from Koyuki's position. Revealing his Sherinan once more he was shocked to see that the clouds were actually being created by Aningia. There was chakra laced throughout the sky as the chakra was constantly being pumped into the clouds to expand them. The Haytake saw little white specks begin to fall from the clouds. Ona landed on his masked cheek, and he realized it was snow. However, this was no ordinary snow. This snow held chakra and because oft had, it was starting to screw with Kakashi's Sherinan much like the mist generated from the Kirigaku no Jutsu did. The snow quickly picked up and even started to blizzard, causing the man to stop and hold his ground against the harsh winds. Kakashi could see almost nothing though the chakra-infested snow, making his Sharingan utterly useless. He luckily already knew where to go, so he pulled his headband over his Sherinan eye and went trucking along through it. A worsening weather / the heavy snow reached all the way to Haru no Kuni's borders as it was quickly covering the once flourished land. Naruto and Sakura had arrived at the scene of the explosion just as the dark clouds overhead began to cover them with snow. Even through the bad weather, Naruto and Sakura were still able to help those around as Uzumaki used his clones and brought the injured to the Haranawo had set up a decent-sized tent in what had to have been record time. Luckily the explosion had not been too bad. No one was killed but there were a good amount injured. Those with lighter injuries were told to help those who had worse ones. Naruto knew that Sakura was getting a hold of everything as she told a couple of people who had just cuts and bruises to help her move an unconscious person onto the table nearest to her. He knew they were in capable hands, and he needed to find where his team Matesa and Koyuki had gone. They were the only ones not accounted for. After discovering this he entered Sage mode as quickly as possible to sense them out. Even though the storm around them was laced with chakra like how Pain's rain technique had been, Naruto was still able to tell where everyone was with ease. Sai was off in the opposite direction of Koyuki and Kakashi, fighting just one person. Naruto thought to go help Sai, but then sensed what Kakashi was going to be up against. Plus, the whole purpose of coming here was to start an alliance, and having the daimyo who agreed to the alliance dying on them was a no-no. The Uzumaki Naruto could handle himself, so he wished him well before turning to the Haruno as she tended to the injured. Sakura-chan. Naruto called out as he walked over to a table Sakura had put her pouch, wakaizashi, and kunao holder on. He grabbed the kunao holder and began putting it on his thigh over hyzer and shorts. He had left all his traditional attire at the hotel, and had not had time to get it. Guess he would just have to bear with the cold. At hearing her name, Sakura sent a glance to Naruto to see what he was doing before looking back at her patient. The Haruno share was tied back in a bun, and her forehead was moist with sweat as someone beside her, who volunteered to help, patted it with a tree towel. When Naruto saw he had a fraction of her attention, he hollered, "I'm going to go find out who did this and stop them. I'm taking your kunao holder." The Haruno cursed at her teammate for distracting her as she continued to patch up the woman below her. "Damn it, that's fine Naruto. I'll catch up with you guys when I'm done here." Naruto nodded even though he doubted she would see it. He wanted to say something like good luck, but knew she was too busy to pay him any mind. The Rokyudame Hokage left the tense warmth into the storm and leapt away, ignoring the brisk winds as they blew into him. Shiro had not moved from his spot atop the gargantuan mirror as Hello okayed down upon Kakashi as the ninja made his way through the treetops outlining the plane they were in. While he could not see the Hatake, it was within his powers to sense him coming. He did not worry because he would come out victorious in the end. No one could stop him. Not with the power that now coursed through him. Shiro was going to kill his brother's murderer, and he could do it with ease. However, Shiro would let his underlings weaken the man first just so it would be all the more fun in the end. Daiichi, Amaya. The two landed on either side of him in an L position on top of this mirror. Shiro continued to stare in Kakashi's direction as the man made his way through the trees. Deal with him. The two nodded and disappeared a second later. Kakashi leapt from the treetops onto the now snow-covered plain where he had seen the kidnappers stay at before the chakra storm. He squinted through the heavy snow, and spotted Princess Koyuki pinned down by something a good distance away. He wanted to use his Sharingan, but he knew his hidden eye would be useless cause of the chakra coursing through every piece of snow that fell. The Sharingan would see even less than what his ordinary eye would. The Hatake moved along through the storm, his shoes leaving imprints in the snow-covered grass. He held up an arm to cover his face from the raging winds, and ignored the blistering cold even though he was in his regular attire. After several minutes he came upon Koyuki. He bent down and went to pry the metal spikes that pinned her clothing. "It's okay now Koyuki Dano. Let's get you out of here Wadash." Just as Kakashi's hand reached the first spike, it shimmered and then disappeared, along with Koyuki. The Hatake cursed the fact that he could not use his Sharingan or else he would have spotted Genjutsu a lot easier. His danger sense kicked in as he rolled to the side through the snow, dodging a sword that would have cut his head off. He quickly got to his feet and saw a black-haired woman who held an ordinary-looking katana. The woman leaned the back of her sword onto her shoulder as if it was some large weapon. Amaya smirked at seeing Kakashi's alerted state. "So this is the Sharingan no Kakashi? Can't say that I'm impressed." A hissing noise then reached her ears. She looked down and her eyes widened when she saw a kunao with an explosive note attached to its end stabbed into the ground. She cursed and jumped back, just barely getting out of harm's way from the explosion. "So uncivilized. Did I not warn you that Kakashi would be a threat?" A new voice emerged through the storm as an old man holding a cane made of ice came walking up beside Amaya. Amaya gave the crone an annoyed glance, her black locks swaying in the breezy air. "Shut up old man." Kakashi eyed the pair suspiciously as their attention was drawn back to him. He would have to defeat the two snow ninja without his Sharingan, and that could prove difficult if they were both of Jounin claws. Amaya intertwined her fingers and then stretched them out in front of her. "I've been waiting to do this for 4 years. The black-haired woman began performing hand seals. "Hayaton, Kyusokuna Yuki." Kakashi's eye widened when he saw the snow start to spin around Amaya. The icy white powder shot for Kakashi in a spiraling tube of dense, thrashing snow. The man leapt to the side, effectively dodging the jutsu. Seconds after the Hatake avoided the attack, the old man was upon him, moving with a lot more agility than any normal man his age could do. The cane made of ice Daiichi wielded morphed, becoming a deep deeply defined greatsword as the elder heaved it over his head almost effortlessly despite its big size. Kakashi, being quicker than the old man, grabbed the crone's wrist and diverted the path of the sword as it hit the snow-covered ground beside the haytake. Kakashi swung his fist forward, aiming for Daiichi's face. However, Kakashi leaned his upper body backwards at the last second, dodging the blade of Amaya's katana as it went past the front of his face. Kakashi quickly changed his tactics, keeping his grip on the old man's wrist, and then grabbing Amaya's wrist in front of him with his free hand. After having both of them in his clutches, Kakashi channeled a burst of chakra to the muscles in his arm. The grip on the two tightened, causing them to let go of their weapons. Kakashi then lifted the two off the ground in a display of great strength, the two combatants widening their eyes at the gravity-defying feat. Not a second later, Kakashi spun, slinging Amaya and Daiichi immediately after her. The two were sent several tens of a yard away before sliding across the snow, landing in a heap together. The two tried to get up, much to the frustration of one another as they fought for who should get up first. In their disorientation, Kakashi completed a set of hand seals, Katon, Karyu and Dan. 3. Streams of fire shaped as dragons spawned from Kakashi's mouth, attacking the two snow ninja from the right, left, and middle. Both Yukinen quickly composed themselves, making it to their feet while simultaneously doing the same hand seals, almost in complete sync. They completed the set just as the three fire dragons were upon them. They both slammed their hands into the snow, yelling their jutsu, Hayaton, Yukidomu. The snow around Kakashi's two opponents rapidly spun around them before hardening, creating a dome of snow, seconds before the fire dragons landed. The offense and defense collided, creating a subsequent explosion that held back some of the falling snow for several seconds. Kakashi eyed the dissipating smoke, believing that the strong fire jutsu he just used should have easily killed the two. His eye slightly rose in surprise when the smoke cleared to reveal the two completely unharmed. The woman was smirking in cockiness with her hands on her hips, while the old man stayed hunched over a cane of ice that just magically appeared. Amaya took a step forward, her smirk growing, surprised. Like I said, I'm not impressed. Daiichi scoffed at the girl's choice of words. Oh hush. You know that if it wasn't for the fact we both performed the jutsu, either one of us would have been roasted. The black-haired snow ninja sent her associate a death glare out the corner of her eyes. Shut up, old man. So uncivilized. Daiichi breathed out in irritation, stepping past Thuomon next to him. Amaya had never seen Daiichi take the initiative in a battle, so seeing him act in such a way silenced her for the time being. When he spoke, his voice left no room for argument. Stay back, and act as support. Excuse me, Amaya said dangerously. The old man was not Shiro. She was not scared enough to take orders from some elderly man. Daiichi looked over his shoulder at the woman, about to give her another piece of his mind, but never got the chance as the sound of chirping birds became extremely close. Daiichi jumped out of the way at the last second, but because Kakashi was slightly quicker, he was able to tear the right side of the man's chakra armor off from their proximity. Unfortunately for Kakashi, there was no damage done to his body. The haytake thrust his arm forward, aiming for Amaya, who had been standing a few feet behind Daiichi. However, Amaya jumped away a split second after Daiichi had, so she got away unscathed. The two landed several yards across from each other, one being on Kakashi's right, and the other on his left. Kakashi deactivated his Reikari. Normally he would not have used the move without his Sharingan, but the two were in a line, and had become completely enthralled in their own conversation. Their incompatibility as teammates almost cost them their lives. Kakashi then noticed his disadvantage at being between the two snow ninja. They capitalized on this advantage, each going through a set of hand seals. Both snow ninja used the same technique. They called out at the same time, Hayaton, Yuki no Shiwa. Bullets of chakra-laced snow shot from the covered ground in front of both combatants. This hour of snow came for Kakashi. For the strangest of reasons, the haytake thought back to his fight with Nadare. This might have been attributed to the fact that he was fighting ice users, but at the moment Kakashi did not think too into it. His thoughts of Nadare are what made him use the next jutsu that came to mind, one of the jutsu he had copied. The haytake quickly went through the hand seals, calling out his jutsu as he slammed his hands into the ground. Hayaton, Haryumoko. Kakashi concentrated more chakra into the snow around him, creating two ice wolves instead of one. Two tigers made of snow formed on either side of Kakashi. The beasts solidified themselves toes from the chakra being pumped into them the moment they spawned. The tigers both raced through the air at their respective opponent. The powerful jutsu destroyed both showers of snow and forced both Yukinin to jump away. The tigers smashed into the ground where both had once stood, leaving spiked columns of ice in their place. Shiro watched from his perch atop the mirror. He had watched impassively the entire time. That was until Kakashi soiled his brother's name by using one of his jutsu. Shiro's face coiled back in complete rage, his voice trembling in anger. "How dare you, Shiro's voice then boomed throughout the area, causing it to shake. "How dare you, all." The people below him looked up to his location, feeling the pressure that he exerted. Shiro body flickered to Kakashi location, appearing 10 yards in front of the man in a small tornado of snow. Daichi and Amaya were stunned to see Shiro with such rage over his expression, having never seen him in such a way. His eyes were wide open, he was baring his teeth, and a vein could be seen bulging from under his forehead protector. Now that he was so close, Kakashi could almost taste the chakra that emanated from the white-haired man in front of him. The chakra was so palpable that it outlined his entire being in a bright white light. Shiro's anger only escalated when Amaya's trembling voice spoke up. "SS Shiro-sama, we had this perfectly under control." Amaya immediately regretted speaking her mind when Shiro's wide eyes slowly turned to her. Within the next instant, several spikes made of hardened ice emerged from the ground, puncturing Amaya, turning her body into Swiss cheese. She stared down at her pierced body with wide eyes full of horror. Blood trickled out the corners of her mouth as she tried to get out one last word before death embraced her. Her head and body became limp, the multiple ice spikes being thinly thin, keeping her body upright. Shiro was too enraged to care if she heard him or not. "Because you're useless." Daichi watched the display of rage in silence. The elder had known Shiro for most of the young boy's life, and had only seen him in such a rage once before. After his brother's death, Shiro nearly killed too many Yukinin for them to cover it up from Princess Koyuki. Daichi knew not to disagree with Shiro. It was just unfortunate the girl was too bold for her own good. Daichi slowly backed off, not wanting to jet in the crosshairs of their incoming battle. Kakashi was surprised and angered by the man's actions, but was too experienced of a ninja to let it affect his facial features. Kakashi clenched his fists shut, but did not speak. The Hatake became greatly concerned with the fact that the new enemy had just used a jutsu without any hands seal. Add on to that fact that the jutsu instantly turned the snow from the ground to ice. The transformation was so fast it almost made Kakashi think the man had a Kekai Genkai. However, that was impossible because the only clan that could create ice out of thin air was the Yuki clan, which was now extinct. Therefore, that would mean the new guy was a very powerful ninjutsu user. The only other man aside from himself that could turn snow to ice so quickly was Nadare, but that man was dead. Kakashi readied himself when the rage-induced Shiro turned his attention back to the Hatake. "How dare you disgrace my brother's name by using one of his techniques?" Shiro spat out threateningly. Kakashi took the information in silence, once again remembering Nadare, one of the stronger ninja that the Hatake fought in his life, so that Nadare had a brother. There is an uncanny resemblance between the two. That would also explain the ice ninjutsu. "Will you say nothing?" Shiro shouted, annoyed his brother's assailant was not saying anything. Shiro slowly calmed himself, knowing not to get heated in the situation, no matter how he felt. The Yuki Jounin stood with his arms crossed, once again expressionless as his hair blew about in the rapid wind. Kakashi sent a burst of chakra to his legs, rocketing him towards Shiro with the kunai drawn. The Hatake was upon the man in an instant, aiming to stab the man's jugular. Suddenly the snow on the ground in front of Shiro sprung up to defend him. It created a shield of ice that caused Kakashi's weapon to bounce back, not even leaving a scratch on it. The entire time this happened, Shiro had not moved a muscle. In retaliation, several large spikes emerged from the sheet of ice, aiming to stab Kakashi. The Hatake started to jump back, but the protrusions were too quick, causing him to channel lightning chakra to his kunai. Kakashi sliced off several of the pointed ends of the ice spears as he continued to jump back, but only more would take their place. Kakashi had backpedals almost 40 yards when he saw two large walls of ice on either side of him that had been created as a trap. Moments after he was enclosed on either side, Kakashi backed into a hard wall of ice, completely surrounded with the ice spikes coming for him directly in front. Kakashi's one eye widened as the spikes were upon him in seconds. Shiro heard the crash that subsequently followed his attack. The sound of ice crashing into ice rang through the windy air, meaning his attack had penetrated Kakashi and hit the wall of ice. Shiro watched on with no display of emotion at slaying Naruto's killer while the ice he had summoned slowly melted away at his command. Then, without warning, the ground in front of Shiro's feet exploded outward. Kakashi emerged from the ground with the same kunai in hand, only to find that Shiro had dodged the attack. The Yukinin had leaned back, away from the attack after having sensed Kakashi's survival. Shiro was parallel with the ground when he spun in midair and delivered a heavy kick to the Heitake's side before the man could recover from his missed attack. Kakashi was sent spinning across snow-covered ground, making him grunt in pain. Kakashi rolled to a crouch, looking at his adversary dangerously. The snow seemed to spin around Shiro's lower half, slowing his descent as he elegantly landed on the ground. The man's arms fell to his side, but his face remained stoic. Kakashi's eyes narrowed. He has quick reflexes. I'll give him that. But he shouldn't be able to use ninjutsu without hand seals. There's got to be a reason for that. Kakashi scanned his surrounding for any indicator. The Heitake had noticed how the white light encasing Shiro was not natural. The moon, which was surrounded by black clouds above, seemed to be shining its light directly on Themen. The moon illuminated the entire field as well, allowing Kakashi to better see his surroundings. Kakashi spotted the three gargantuan mirrors made of ice behind Shiro, shocked to see that they had remained after so many years of spring weather within Haru no Kuni. His keen eye also picked up on the fact that the image of the moon somehow reflected off of them, even though the 90-degree angle at which they stood would not allow for such a thing. Kakashi then deduced that they held the key to Shiro's powers, and must be destroyed. Kakashi got to his feet, trying to come up with a plan. First, he had to jet around Shiro and Daiichi. He doubted he could use his Sharingan. It might have cleared up a little, but there was still heavy snow falling down. Plus, just from their one interaction, Kakashi could tell that Shiro was probably almost on the same level as him if they were to fight on any average day, but the Heitake did not have a Sharingan and Shiro could use ninjutsu instantly. There was also the other ninja who was most likely a high Chuunin to low Jounin level, so there was no way of defeating the two at the current time. Kakashi had to destroy the three giant ice mirrors, if he had any chance of winning. Hopefully he would only need to break one to stop Shiro's powers. However, therein lies the other problem. If he had to destroy all three, how would he go about doing it? He could probably destroy one of them at a time using a larger form of Reikari, but just one of that magnitude could prove fatal because of Chakri's Housechin. The situation looked grim for Kakashi, but he did not let it get the best of him. The Heitake breathed slowly, gaining control of himself. First things first. Kakashi then stared at Shiro. I have to get around this guy. Shiro eyed Kakashi down. The man then extended his hands forward, spreading his fingers out. His actions immediately put Kakashi on high alert. Areas of falling snow in the sky around Kakashi then started to clump together, forming spheres made of condensed snow. There were about 20 basketball-sized orbs hovering around Kakashi when the Heitake started performing hand seals. Kakashi quickly finished the set just as Shiro clenched his fists. The floating balls of snow shot a numerous amount of smaller-sized bullets in rapid succession, leaving no room for him to escape because of their numbers, which would certainly kill the Heitake. However, Kakashi had no intention of dodging the projectiles as he slammed his hands onto the ground once more. Sudden, Suishaugai. The snow on the ground around Kakashi turned to water and spun around the man before erupting up as a spinning torrent of water that protected him. Kakashi concentrated hard, adding some more chakra into the jutsu, except this chakra had a small amount of his fire affinity in it, thus quickly making the water around him heat up. The miniature snow bullets melted as soon as they touched the scorching waters. Shiro narrowed his eyes at the jutsu, thinking nothing of it. Hecla sped his hands together and the remaining amount of snowball shovering in the air turned to ice. The small pellets they were shooting turned to ice, and some of them were able to penetrate the Heitake's defensive jutsu. Kakashi felt the few projectiles that came through his defense as they nicked his body. He was not able to maneuver to the best of his abilities because of his confinement from his own technique, but he was able to avoid anything fatal. The ice bullets thoroughly shredded his Jounin vest to the point it slid off his body. Kakashi's black one piece under the vest was cut up pretty good, but most of the cuts had luckily not met skin. However, near the very end off the barrage, one of pellets had pierced clean through his right shoulder. His shoulder erupted in pain, but he stifled a yell. The injury made his right arm go limp and cancelled the jutsu. Kakashi mentally cursed when his jutsu faltered and he saw Shiro standing across from him with his arms on his hips. Luckily Shiro's jutsu had stopped as well, meaning Kakashi would not be turned to Swiss cheese like Amaya. Shiro took several steps forward before stopping. Kakashi remained kneeled on the ground, favoring his injured arm with his good one as blood seeped through his fingers. Kakashi's eye narrowed as Shiro approached. The Hatake tried to come up with his next plan of action as the heavy snow fell upon them. Shiro rose his arm up, away to his right. An extraordinarily well-defined spear with tassels tied just below the base of its sharp-ended end materialized out of thin air and into the man's hand. Kakashi widened at the display of power. The spear was so well made that the ice could actually move, as indicated by the tassels that flowed in the wind. Shiro's words reached the Hatake's ears. "Hate God for pitting you against me, my brother's keeper." The white-haired man threw the spear as it sailed through the air, Theta cells whipping about and creating a whistling sound. Kakashi cursed and let go of his wounded shoulder, channeling lightning chakra into his left hand. The Hatake stood and swung his rakura forward. The spear's end met the rakuri and the entire ice-made creation dissolved in an instant. Kakashi's small victory was short-lived when he noticed the second, identical, spear of ice that had been hidden within the shadow of the first. "No!" Kakashi yelled out as his right thigh exploded in pain when this pair of ice skewered his leg. Kakashi let out a howl as he fell onto his left knee, not wanting to put pressure on his punctured leg. The spear was sticking halfway through the Hatake's thigh. Kakashi cursed the snow that showered down around them. He would have noticed the second attack instantly had he had his Sharingan revealed. Kakashi grabbed the weapon from behind his leg, knowing it had to be pulled out that way, lest he cause more damage by pushing it out the way it came in. Kakashi let out a feral growl as he pulled the weapon free and threw it away. The ice disappeared into the snow where it landed. More blood fell from his body and onto the snow, turning it a bloody crimson. Kakashi panted heavily in his condition. He looked up to Shiro who had another spear in hand. Kakashi concentrated his chakra, doing a basic medical ninjutsu as green chakra encased his left hand. He moved it to his thigh, just doing enough to close the wound, and then did the same for his shoulder. Kakashi could still barely move, but at least he would not die from blood loss, for now. Kakashi eyed his opponent once more, thinking about his current situation. "This is really bad." Shiro took this moment to rear the spear back, saying, "Let's try that once more." Shiro slung the spear at the Hatake, the weapon traveling twice as fast as before. Kakashi made a movement to stand, but pain shot throughout his body, causing him to fall back onto his knee. He still could not move the right side of his body from all the damage done to his appendages. Kakashi's eye widened, not finding a way out of this predicament. Crap. Kakashi closed his eye and waited for the inevitable. However, it never came. The Hatake felt nothing happen. Curious, the Jounin slowly cracked his eye open, only to find the spear hovering in the air no less than a foot from his face. Kakashi then noticed there was a hand gripping the middle of the spear, halting its movement. The Hatake's eye scaled up the man's arm, and came to stop at the back of the newcomer's head. The man was barefoot, in a t-shirt and shorts, and had spiky blonde hair. Kakashi's eye widened, realizing who it was, Naruto. Shiro's eyes widened as well, seeing someone he was not suspecting. However, he quickly calmed himself, knowing not Eventual God-like Hokage would be a match for him the way he was. "No, that's strange. You should have been brain dead by now. I take it you didn't swallow the pill." Naruto remained quiet, his loose hair casting a shadow upon his eye so no one could see them. The Uzumaki squeezed his fist, causing the spear of ice to shatter into a million pieces. Shiro was not impressed by the display of strength, or by his silent attitude. The Uzumaki even had the audacity to ignore him and speak with Kakashi, though he did not turn around. "Kakashi-sensei, Sakura-chan will be here soon, just try to last till then." "Okay." Kakashi silently nodded. The Hatake wanted to warn his student about the man's powers, but then remembered that Naruto had defeated someone like Pain, so he knew the blonde could handle himself. Shiro was slightly irritated by Naruto's disrespect, causing him to create another spear. However, this one was even sharper than the previous one, and its point was made with a spiral finish to deal all the more damage when it punctured the person. Shiro threw his weapon, tired of being ignored. Naruto's eyes were still hidden as he took several steps forward, getting closer to the spear that zoomed through the air. When Thuppen was a few feet from Naruto, the Uzumaki met the end of Thes pair with his fist. Shiro and Daiichi's eyes widened. The sound of glass breaking rang through the air as the spear was shattered upon impact with Naruto's fist. The falling particles of ice shimmered around Naruto as they fell to the ground. "I'm sorry," the Uzumaki began, catching Shiro's attention at the unexpected words. "I seem to have given you the wrong impression." Shiro immediately knew Naruto was talking about their interaction on the set of Koyuki's movie. Naruto's head rose, shadows caressing his frog-like eyes. Twisting shadows illuminated his face ominously as a vein bulged from his forehead, and his voice shook with anger. "The impression that I'm someone to be fucked with." // lay on the ground, a dark liquid covering most of his body. Fubuki stood over the man, eyeing the motionless body lackadaisically. "Do you understand now that what I told you is true?" Sai slowly cracked one eye open and looked up at the woman. On closer inspection, the substance covering him in the semi-destroyed area was actually the ink from Sai's artwork techniques. He was completely unharmed, his masterpieces taking all that damage from their battle thus far. After finding a good place to fight, Sai had begun his battle with Fubuki. However, she had strangely claimed to be working for Princess Koyuki as a secret agent to root out any people who wanted to do harm to Yukagaku or Haru no Kuni. Sai was not so easily swayed, to say the least. He attacked her and she was quickly overwhelmed. That was until the snowstorm came. The tides immediately changed and Fubuki made quick work of Sai's creations with her renewed Hayaton abilities. To prove to him that she was on his side, she made sure to only destroy his artworks. Fubuki continued in Sai's silence. "Like I said, after foolishly following Doto in my younger years, I went to Koyuki Dano and asked for her forgiveness. She accepted it and I have faithfully followed her until now. I could care less about that bastard Shiro's plan. I just want to serve my nation, and if it means I have to sacrifice me power over snow and ice, then so be it. It means little to me." Sai got to his feet while Fubuki backed up to give the Leafnin his pace. Sai continued to say nothing, eyeing his opponent, trying to decide if he should trust her already. His actions made Fubuki puff her cheeks and put her hands on her hips in sass. "You know I could have just frozen your ass." Sai contemplated her words. All of Danzu's teachings told him to kill her, but he wondered what Naruto would do in this situation, and decided to trust his friend over his master's teachings. Something he found he had been doing a lot of recently. All Sai said was, "Okay." Fubuki nodded sharply, saying quickly, "Good." Sai's fake smile came up. "Where to now?" Fubuki turned. "We have to save Koyuki Dano, and then we can deal with Shiro. It will be pretty hard now that he has the power of Themun under his disposal, but if we have enough people, there is a way to stop him." Sai nodded. "Lead the way, tomboy." Fubuki clenched her teeth and fists in anger at the name, but refrained from saying anything. "This guy. / those are some strong words," Shiro said, crossing his arms. "Even with the moon's powers, he was able to break my ice. He has an inhuman amount of strength. So this is the power of the 6th Hokage. How frightening." However, Shiro preformed a body flicker, the only indication being a swirl of snow. "Power doesn't mean everything," Shiro said from behind Naruto. However, Shiro's eyes widened when he appeared, and did not find Naruto in front of him. Naruto's voice came from behind the Yukinin, speaking darkly. "You seem to have misheard me." Shiro created a wall of ice between the two in a split second. It did little to slow the Uzumaki as his fist smashed through the sheet of icy and into Shiro's back. The attack sent Shiro flying across the field. He flew about 20 yards before the falling snow seemed to gently catch him and place him onto the ground, facing Naruto. Shiro looked on unimpressed. Naruto looked down at his fist that had just connected with Shiro's back. Ice particles were falling from his fist. Although he knew they had to be from the ice wall he destroyed, he found it weird that when he punched Shiro's back it felt just as hard as ice. The Uzumaki thanked himself for taking off all his weights and entering Sage mode before coming. Because he did not have his Sage scroll, Naruto had to enter the mode the old-fashioned way. However, this did have its own benefits. Because he did not use a clone for gathering senjutsu, he got all of the chakra, and not just a portion of it. This meant the mode would last longer. A clone got him about 2 to 3 minutes off Sage mode. That was if he did not use the Raisin Shuriken, which diminished the time for reasons he had yet to figure out. So he figured doing it himself gave him 5 to 10 minutes. Naruto slowly turned his gaze back to Shiro. That's more than enough time to deal with this clown. Naruto proceeded to do a set of hand seals, showcasing one of his recently learned wind techniques as he breathed in a large amount of air. Futon, Yagatapa. A narrow beam of high-velocity wind shot out of Naruto's mouth. This technique was a smaller version of the Great Breakthrough Jutsu. However, because of its smaller size, the wind was more concentrated, and more deadly. Shiro remained unfazed. A wall of ice sprung up from the ground in front of the white-haired man. The stream of wind collided with these, but did little to damage it. The wind streaked out over the wall, but other than creating a blast of wind in one direction, did little to no thing. When the wind died down, so did Shiro's ice wall. The snow ninja looked around, not finding Naruto. On instinct, Shiro flipped backwards over Naruto as the blonde appeared, a kunai in hand. The attack would have hit the center of Shiro's back had he not dodged. Shiro landed and lunged for Uzumaki. Naruto reversed the grip he had on his kunai and swung around, aiming to stab the side of Shiro's head. The snow jounin saw the attacking coming and ducked underneath it, not slowly down. The water vapor nearest Tashiro's outstretched hand solidified, producing an ice dagger in hand. Shiro went for the Uzumaki's heart, but never reached it. Naruto's free hand grabbed Shiro's wrist, changed the trajectory so it was passed by his side, under the arm which held the kunai. That same arm that held the kunai then wrapped itself around Shiro's arm, holding him in place. Just as Naruto did this, Shiro created another ice dagger in his free hand, and went for the Uzumaki's throat. Naruto let go of the kunai and caught it with his free hand before swinging it out to meet Shiro's dagger. The two collided and found themselves in a stalemate as neither gave the other an inch to move. All of a sudden, Naruto's danger sense kicked him and he let go of Shiro, jumping back 10 yards. He was smart to do so as several spears shot out of the ground and smashed together at the point where Naruto had once been standing. The protrusions retracted back into the ground almost as quickly as they emerged, while Shiro stood back to full length, his two ice daggers disappearing into thin air. TCH. Naruto sucked his teeth at seeing the way Shiro could manipulate the water to such an extent. That could cause some problems. Shiro stretched his arms out to his side and tilted his head back slightly, looking down his nose at the boy in front of him. You have no way of defeating someone like me. I have the full power of Themun under my grasp. I am essentially a god. Naruto smirked at the man's choice of words. Sorry to burst your bubble, but I'm what some may call a god slayer. The Rokudame's words made Shiro narrow his eyes. We'll see about that. The two ran at one another once again. Kakashi watched from afar, making it away from the two's battle. He needed to find a way to destroy the gigantic ice mirrors if Naruto was going to have any chance at defeating Shiro. He did not know how long his student could hold the man, but the quicker the better. However, the Hokage was finding it increasingly harder to do so as the more he tried to move, the more his body got heavier. Kakashi cursed his current predicament, and reached for his pouch searching it for a soldier pill. It would have to do for now. The Kakashi pulled one out and was about to pull his mask down when he saw something flying towards him out the corner of his eye. The Hokage rolled to the right just as several spikes made of ice landed in the ground where he once stood. The Kakashi remained on one knee, the right side of his body still in pain. He berated himself for dropping the soldier pill in his quick maneuvers. Kakashi looked up to see the old man he had been previously fighting walking toward him. Just my luck, Kakashi told himself. He is quite the genius, is he not? Daichi asked, referring to Shiro. Kakashi's eye traveled over to Naruto's battle. It was at this time that Shiro had tricked Naruto into attack an ice clone that was identical to Shiro. Shiro used this opportunity to lay a haymaker into Naruto's face. The Uzumaki got right back up and went for the snow ninja once more. Kakashi turned back to Daichi, who remained where he was, hunched over a cane of ice. Kakashi was not going to say anything, but then his eye slightly widened when he felt a familiar presence nearby. The haytake hit his features, realizing his advisory had not sensed her. Kakashi needed to distract the man, so he nodded ever so slightly, saying, "Yes." If only he had chosen to use his powers for the betterment of his village. The old man scoffed, "You have no place in this haytake, Kakashi. What gives you the right to say that what he is doing now is not for the betterment of our village? A war hero you may be, but not one of these village." Daichi held his cane out as it morphed into another great sword. "Shiro is going to change this village for the better." Kakashi narrowed his eye. He brought his left hand up in front of his face, making a tiger seal as he concentrated his chakra. Daichi started to run at the haytake, but hesitated when a pink-haired girl landed in front of Kakashi. Daichi picked his speed back up, knowing there was nothing she could do. The pink-haired girl ran at Daichi, but did not expect the man to be so quick. The elderly snow ninja plunged his sword into the girl's stomach, so uncivilized. However, after stabbing the girl, Daichi noticed the girl's body started to shimmer, as if it was fake. Genjutsu. Daichi thought in horror. That would be the elder's last thought as a fist slammed into the back of his head and smashed it into the ground. The attack killed the man, his body laying limp a foot deep in the ground. Sakura stood up over the man's body, sighing heavily. Well, that's so. She had been healing most of the townspeople that had been injured, and then had to rush over here, so she was pretty exhausted. The Harano looked over to her sensei and hurried over to him. "Thanks for the diversion, Kakashi-sensei." Kakashi fell back onto his butt as Sakura came over and began healing him. He smiled under his mask, breathing heavily. "Anytime." Shiro saw Daichi get killed out the corner of his eyes, but thought little of it as he dodged another one of Naruto's fists. This time Shiro caught the wrist of the attack, and swung Naruto over his shoulder, throwing him several yards away. The Uzumaki rolled to his feet, sneering, "This bastard's just as fast as me. His fighting style is so fluid too. He doesn't block my attacks, but moves around them instead, so I can't use my senjutsu strength. However, he doesn't fully dodge them either, so I can't use my frog katas to hit him. It's like he is using my own strength against me. This guy's really good. Damn it, if only I could get one clean hit with my senjutsu enhanced strength, I could kill him instantly." Naruto stared impassively at his opponent for several seconds before coming up with an idea. The Uzumaki crossed his fingers, summoning a large amount of clones around him, about 100 in total. Shiro looked on unimpressed. "Okay, I'll play this game." 4 clones emerged from the ground around Shiro, before charging the army of Naruto's. They blew through the Uzumaki's clones like bulls. The real Shiro stood back, trying to find the real one. It took him little time to do so. He spotted the real one at the rear of his army, staying out of harm's way as expected. Shiro hid his presence and made his way around the battle of clones. Shiro made his way towards Naruto from behind, the Uzumaki pretending to be completely unaware of the man's presence. When Shiro was several feet from Naruto, and had an ice dagger in hand, he said, "It's only natural for the real one to stay out of harm's way." Naruto turned and his eyes widened as Shiro stabbed the man in the heart. Shiro stared impassively when the Naruto he had stabbed turned to smoke. Shiro turned his head, looking over his shoulder at real Naruto, who was seconds away from punching him. Naruto smirked triumphantly as his fist slammed into Shiro's fist. It was short-lived as the Shiro turned to ice and then shattered. Naruto stared in horror with wide eyes as he heard Shiro's voice behind him. "However, you seem like the kind of fool who would attack with his clones to trick his enemies." The dagger pierced Naruto's heart from behind just as Shiro finished talking. Shiro watched the body fall face first into the snow-covered ground. All the clones around them started to disappear. However, Shiro's eyes slightly widened in surprise when this Naruto turned to smoke as well. Shiro turned on a dime, only for his face to be met with a hard fist. "Fooled you," Naruto said in victory, sending Shiro flying from his punch. Naruto had finally landed a hit. Although, looking down at his fist one more, Naruto felt eerily strange. When Naruto had punched them, it felt like he was hitting ice. The Uzumaki was actually not too surprised that his punch had not killed the man as Shiro picked himself off the ground. The sound of cracking ice reached Naruto's ears. Shiro got to his feet and turned around, shocking the Uzumaki. It was like Shiro was wearing a solid mask of ice over his face because the spot where Naruto had punched him was falling apart. Cracks were spread across the man's face as more of the ice covering his face started to fall from his body. Impressive, Shiro said, the rest of his ice mask falling away revealing the same impassive face. I can't remember the last time someone was able to break my ice armor. Naruto snarled, damn it, this guy's got armor that's like Gaara's. What the hell is this guy? Wait, the way he just said that. I thought snow users could only manipulate existing snow and ice. Yet there was none before this storm came up, so how did he have that armor before now? Maybe I'm just overthinking what he said. Shall we continue? Shiro asked impatiently. I need to finish up things with him soon. His comrades are going to try and destroy these mirrors, which I cannot have. It will take them some time to figure out how, so I'm safe for now. I just need to deal with this guy first. Let's. Naruto yelled as he charged the man. I only have a couple more minutes of Sage Mode. I'm going to have to kill him before Ethan. If not, I will just have to use Mazame. I haven't really had the time to learn more about it, so I will have to be careful elsewhere. Sakura and Kakashi were near the towering ice mirrors. Sakura had done her best patching up the haytake. He was still sorry and low on chakra, but he could move his body effectively again. Sakura intended to go and help Naruto, but Kakashi told her what Shiro was capable of and that they needed to somehow destroy these mirrors if they had any hopes of beating him. They did not know of Naruto's Mazame mode, so it seemed like the two fighters were evenly matched. However, they knew Naruto's Sage mode would eventually run out, so they had to hurry. The two Konohans spotted an unconscious Koyuki near the base off middle ice mirror. They made sure she was alright, and then turned their attention to the ice mirrors, knowing they had to destroy them first. Why? Do I get the feeling this is going to be a lot harder than we think? Kakashi deadpanned. Sakura ran past Kakashi, surprising him at her suddenness. She concentrated chakra to her fist and slammed it into the base-off mirror. Even though the mirror was rock solid and did not waver, a ripple effect was sent up the reflection of the mirror. Sakura retracted her fist in shock, seeing that her attack did nothing. Kakashi growled, like I said. 100 yards away, Shiro ducked under one of Naruto's fruitless attempts of attack. Shiro spun and aimed a kick at the side off Naruto's head. The Uzumaki flipped backwards away from the snow ninja before taking a leap towards him once again. The white-haired man flipped forward over Naruto, grabbing his shoulders as he did so. Shiro used his strength to pull Naruto off his feet through his flip. When Shiro landed back on the ground, he threw Naruto forward. The Uzumaki flipped midair and landed on his feet, but because of the force of the throw he had to take several steps backward. Shiro's eyes slightly widened when he felt a disturbance in the connection between him and the moon. His eyes turned toward the three ice mirrors 100 yards away. His eyes narrowed dangerously. They are trying to destroy the mirrors already. They were quicker than I would have thought. Shiro turned and took a step towards the three mirrors. He immediately pulled the foot back as a kunai landed in its spot. Shiro turned back to Naruto, who was smiling. Where the hell do you think you're going? Shiro growled, finding the Naruto's persistent knack of not dying irritating. The two were at a stalemate, which surprised Shiro. He had never come across a man just as strong as him, so it was quite annoying that no matter what he did nothing seemed to work. Though he did not show his anger. Shiro created a spear in hand, thinking about the ice mirrors. As long as they do not discover the mirror's failsafe, I am fine. Sakura and Kakashi eyed the giant mirrors, trying to come up with another plan of attack. However, two new presences near them put them on high alert. When Fubuki, one of Shiro's cohorts, came into view, Kakashi told Sakura it was an enemy. The Harino immediately charged the girl that she and Sasuke had allegedly killed. Fubuki saw her coming and frantically waved her hands back and forth. Wait. Fubuki dodged at the last second to avoid any damage. However, her actions left a poor and innocent smiling Sai, who was happily waving at his teammates. Vulnerable, hi Sakura-san. The fist smashed into Sai's face, but Sakura had held back in the last second so it would not be fatal. The Harino slowly pulled her fist back, stammering, sorry Sai. Sai was still smiling, but several of his teeth were missing. One of his closed eyes was twitching, but he remained calm, saying, "It's alright, pig." Sakura let the name slide this time for her actions. She turned to Fubuki, asking the question that was also on Kakashi's mind, "Were you with Sai?" Fubuki opened her mouth to answer, but Sai did it for her, looking normal once again. She is supposedly working for Koyoki Dano. The two nodded, not fully believing it, but going with it. The two moved aside so the two newcomers could see Koyoki sleeping on the ground in front of the mirror. Some patches of snow covered her loose clothing, but other than that she looked no worse for wear. "Koyoki Dano." Fubuki called out as she ran to her daimyo's side. She shook the girl awake, canceling the genjutsu that was on her. Koyoki's eyes slowly fluttered open. The princess saw Fubuki, and questioned her existence. "Fubuki-chan." Fubuki smiled warmly, seeing that Koyoki was unharmed. The two embraced one another. "Yep, it's me. Sakura's." Memories of their first trip to the now land of spring came flooding back. "Wait a minute, didn't me and Sasuke-kun kill you?" Fubuki turned to Sakura, letting go of Koyoki and helping her to stand. "You almost did. Several Yukagaku ninja that had been on patrol at the time found me, then brought me back to the village to be treated. After I heard Sasuke and your friend over there had defeated Doto, I figured it was time to turn over a new leaf. I pledged myself to Koyoki Dano, and have been working as an informant for her since then. However, Shiro never trusted any of his associates, so I had to stop contacting Koyoki Dano over a month ago. That SWHY she didn't know Shiro would start his rebellion today. Hell, I didn't even find out what day it would be till a week ago, and I was the closest to him out of the three of us." Koyoki nodded to confirm what she said. Sakura spoke up, having some questions. "Wait, but if you knew that Shiro would rebel, why not just capture him before he did anything?" Fubuki continued to elaborate, "Because he is the strongest ninja Yukagaku has. Even without his Hayatan abilities, nobody could hope to stop him. Plus by that time he already had Amaya and Daichi, who were close seconds in ability to him, wrapped around his finger. If they knew they had been discovered, then it would be pandemonium for all of Haru no Kuni. They all took the info in, and Kakashi was the next one to voice his thoughts. So then this was the real reason you requested that Naruto come to the village. So you had someone strong enough to deal with Shiro." Fubuki snarled in anger at the way the Hatake was accusing her daimyo. She opened her mouth to retort, but Koyoki beat her to it. "No. I would never. I just wanted him to be the one in my movie, I swear. Like she said, I had no idea Shiro would attack while you guys were here. You've got to believe me." Kakashi eyed the two dangerously, finding it to be too much of a coincidence. One of his biggest pet peeves was when someone tried to use him or his friends. However, from the tone of Koyoki's voice he was finding it hard not to believe the princess. Kakashi closed his eye, sighing heavily. "I believe you." His words alleviated the two's worries. Kakashi then asked one more question, "So then what now?" "Nothing we do seems to work." Fubuki took the initiative on this one. "That's because you have to attack them all at once." They all gave her looks, making her going on explaining. "These isomeres were created by the first settlers that came here decades ago from Kiragaku or no Sato. They were actually built as a means of defense. When activated they trap the moon's powers, and can reflect them to a certain individual or individuals. This is allowing Shiro to control the weather, and enhance all of his abilities. Our village stopped using them long ago, so the way to use them was lost. However, Shiro was somehow able to figure it out. Luckily these settlers created a failsafe in case someone was to abuse their power like Shiro. I was fortunate enough to come across it when looking through one of Shiro's journals." Fubuki continued, "The mirrors are essentially indestructible by themselves. They are each filled with an enormous amount of chakra. They can channel chakra to one another, allowing for one mirror to have almost as much chakra as a biju. However, attacking all three at once causes the mirror's defense defenses to go haywire because they don't know where to distribute the chakra. This causes friction and will destroy the mirrors. Sounds easy enough, Sai said as they went about their plan. Kakashi, Sakura, and Sai each stood 10 yards from their respective mirrors, readying their attacks. Kakashi channeled lightning chakra to his left hand, Sakura pulled her glove tightly onto her hand, and Sai started to create his strongest creation. Fubuki yelled to them, "Go!" The three charged the mirrors simultaneously. Rakery! Kakashi called out as he stabbed his hand forward. Sakura slammed her chakra-enhanced fist into her mirror. Sai held his scroll out and a large dragon came barreling out of it and into the mirror with a massive impact. The same ripple effect shook through the mirrors at the same time. However, this time cracks started to form from the point of their attacks. Slowly the cracks grew in size until they completely covered the gigantic mirrors. A split second later the giant mirrors shattered, the image of the moon now gone. The three jumped around to dodge it falling debris, but smiled triumphantly at their feet. Shiro's eyes widened in shock as the white light that encased him disappeared, and he forgot that he was in the middle of fight. Naruto's foot slammed into his face, sending him tumbling across the ground until he stopped on his front side. Naruto was slightly confused why the man had suddenly stopped, but did not care. However, when the snow suddenly stopped and he could see across the field for once, he started to figure it out. The dark clouds overhead vanished instantly, and the snow that layered the ground started to disappear unnaturally quick, like it had never even been there. The field they were in looked brand new and lush with green, almost like there had not been a snowstorm going on for the past hour. Shiro got up on all fours, clenching the grass roughly with his hands. His ice armor was rapidly falling from his face, revealing a face of anger. He slowly made it to his feet, angered beyond belief. There was no way the Konohinin could have destroyed the mirrors. There was only 2 of them, and they had no idea about the mirror's weakness. So how? Shiro looked in the direction of where the mirrors should have been, but saw the area covered in ice debris. 4 individuals could be seen standing on the debris. Shiro's anger reached new heights when he spotted Fubuki. "Fubuki, you traitor!" Shiro yelled at the woman afar. Fubuki stared back, trying to hold back the pressure that the man was exerting on her. She answered back defiantly, "You're the only traitor here, Shiro. You bitch." Shiro said dangerously, starting to walk toward the group of ninja. Naruto jumped over the man and landed between him and the group of onlookers. Naruto crossed his arms. "You're not going anywhere." Shiro calmed his emotions. Shiro eyed the Uzumaki. "I'm going to enjoy killing you, almost as much as killing my brother's murderer." Naruto did not know who he was talking about, but disregarded it. "Oh, and just how are you going to do that? We were about equals when you could use your ice and snow abilities. Now that you no longer have them, what will you do?" Shiro slightly lowered his head so his eyes were shadowed as an uncharacteristic smirk came across his mouth. "Is that so? What?" Shiro began doing a set of hand seals. "You said I no longer have any Hayaton techniques." Shiro picked his head back up, his greenies glowing with power, and I asked, "Is that so?" A chill ran up Naruto's spine, giving him a very bad feeling. Hayaton, Kori no Shiwa. Needles of ice started to form from theater vapor in the air around Shiro before flying towards Naruto. The projectiles showered down on Naruto in the thousands. The Uzumaki quickly went through a string of hand seals, before sticking his hands out with the bottom of their palms touching one another as he performed another wind technique, Futon, Kami Oroshi. A large wave of wind spread out in an arc, deflecting all the ice needles until there were none left coming at Naruto. The needles slowly melted after landing on the ground. Everyone that watched from afar stared in shock at what Shiro had done. That's impossible. Fubuki stammered in complete horror. "He shouldn't have the power of the moon anymore. He doesn't." Kakashi's words got everyone to look at him. The Hatake had thought it was strange that Shiro was able to manipulate snow and ice so well, and it appeared his assumptions were right. He has a Kekai Genkai. Fubuki still could not believe it, but there's no way. I have never seen him use ice jutsu before, so then he's most likely been keeping it a secret for the just-in-case kind of scenario like right now. Kakashi continued to elaborate. He wanted to help his student, but that last rakery had taken a lot more out of him than he thought it would. Sakura started to walk towards Naruto, saying, "Come on, we have got to help him." "No." Naruto voice called over, surprising the onlookers, "I will handle this." A vein appeared on Sakura's forehead at Naruto's childlike behavior. "Naruto, don't be stupid. We have the numbers on our side, let's do this as a team." "I said I will handle this, Sakura-chan," Naruto said, looking over his shoulder at her. His senjutsu chakra had run out, causing his eyes to revert back to their cerulean color. He did not want them to join in because Shiro was very strong and dangerous. Truthfully, they would probably just get in the way, especially Kakashi in his current state. Naruto did not think he could protect them and beat Shiro without going into Mazaime, which he wanted to keep a secret. The less questions people asked, the better. Sakura just got madder at Naruto's behavior, but Naruto that's an order, Naruto said, being final on the matter. Sakura was hoped Naruto would do such a thing, but quieted down nonetheless. She was still just a Chunin, and he was her Hokage. When he heard no retort, the Uzumaki turned back to Shiro. The white-haired snow ninja had the gall not to attack Naruto while he was talking. Shiro raised an eyebrow, asking sarcastically, "Lovers quarrel? I wish," Naruto said under his breath so no one heard. Shiro ignored Naruto's silence, saying, "No reason to fret, the two of you can fight all you want in the afterlife." Shiro was about to ready himself, but stopped when Naruto said, "One question though." Shiro let out an agitated sigh, wanting to just kill everyone in the area and take over Yukigakure like originally planned. However, he indulged the Uzumaki. Not like he had much longer to live. "What is it? You must have a Kekai Genkai because you can manipulate Ice Soul," Naruto said, making Shiro give him a look. Said, "Obviously." The Uzumaki continued, "Then you must be from the Yuki clan, seeing as they are the only ones capable of it." Shiro continued to give him the same look. "Well, who do you think were the ones that founded Yuki no Kuni? Come on now. The Yuki clan. Yuki no Kuni. Yukigakure." His words caused the Konohinen to widen their eyes. Fubuki and Koyuki already knew their village's history, so there was no surprise. Shiro crossed his arms, continuing with his story. Long ago, a little over 100 years ago, way before the bloodline limit massacres, several of the members of the Yuki clan within Kirigakure immigrated here. They took up residence and made a home for themselves that would one day be known as Yuki no Kuni. They knew there would be those that would try and disrupt their peace, so the strongest of the ice wielders created the sacred ice mirrors that your team just destroyed. Their ability to harness the moon's powers was able to keep foreign invaders out of their land for decades to come. Over the years, the Kekai Genkai slowly receded and became dormant. After about 50 years of living within peace, there were no traces of the bloodline limit left to be found within that people. They could still manipulate the snow and ice, but they could only use what was already pre-existing. 10 years after that, they founded Yukigakure. 20 years from then, me and my brother were born, and the Yuki's bloodline limit resurfaced in me. My brother and I were the only two to ever know about my control over it, and I've kept it a secret until now. Naruto nodded, taking in the information. That's quite a story. However, there is one thing I don't get. Shiro remained quiet, waiting for the Uzumaki to ask, "Why are you fighting against your own village? It doesn't sound like you hate it or want revenge on it." Shiro scoffed, "I could give a damn about this village. It was my brother's dream to one day rule Yukigakure, and make her as powerful as one of the 5 great hidden villages. However, he stupidly followed Dodo to his death. My brother was the only one that understood me, and I loved him. So because of that, on his deathbed, I promised him that I would make his dream a reality. If he have to destroy this village, just to rebuild it in my image, then so be it." Shiro's words caused Naruto to ready himself, knowing there was no way of talking him out of it. Shiro saw this and narrowed his eyes. The two ran at each other the next second, done with words. Shiro threw the first punch with his right, going on the offensive. Naruto leaned back and dodged it, letting Shiro's momentum carry his body. Shiro followed his own movement, spinning while performing a set of phone-handed seals with his left hand. Naruto's eyes widened at the display of technique. A yard-long ice needle materialized in Shiro's hand as he continued his spin back around, aiming for the side of Naruto's head. The Uzumaki grab bait a hold to Shiro's wrist, stopping his movement. Naruto then quickly ducked under the same arm so his back was facing Shiro, but his front was towards the weapon. With Shiro's arm over his right shoulder, Naruto grabbed both sides of the ice needle and swung it downwards while twisting his hip. This caused Shiro to flip over Naruto's body and onto his back on the ground. Naruto spun the weapon in hand before bringing down upon Shiro's face. It would have killed the man, but the weapon turned back to water in Naruto's hands. The water splashed onto Shiro's face, but he brushed it off easily. Shiro put his hands on the ground next to his head and kicked his lower body off the ground so he could give Naruto a barrage of kicks. The Uzumaki started to backpedal, blocking Shiro's attacks as the man continued to walk towards Naruto on his hands while delivering volleys of kicks. Naruto found an opening in Shiro's attacks and punched at the man's lower abdomen. Shiro saw the counter-attack coming and pushed off the ground, flipping over Naruto. As Shiro was landing, Naruto leaned forward and shot his leg back. Shiro crossed his arms in an X, shielding his body from the kick. The attack hit Shiro's arms and caused him to tumble backwards across the ground. Shiro rolled onto his feet and went after the Uzumaki once more. Shiro saw the Uzumaki performing hand seals, but did not stop his stride. He raked Naruto before he could finish, and threw a hard punch aimed at the Hokage's gut. The momentum from the punch and the fact that Shiro was taller than Naruto made the prior man slightly hunched with his attack. Naruto used that to his advance, jumping up just enough to dodge the attack, and then rolled across the man's back so he was behind Shiro. All the while, he did not stop performing hand seals. Naruto landed on the ground with Shiro facing away from him. The Uzumaki brought his hand to his mouth, pumping a lot of chakra into his technique. Futon, de Tapa. Shiro cursed when a large and harsh wind knocked into him, picking him up and sending him flying across the field. The gust ceased when he was a good distance from the Uzumaki, leaving Shiro planted into the ground. Shiro picked himself up, patting down his chakra armor. "We seem to be at a bit of an impasse, you and I," Shiro said, talking about the fact that they were about equals. Naruto nodded in agreement, now starting to regret that he did not have his Sage Scroll. He could have used one of his clones in Thes Crawl to gain more Senjutsu chakra and be done with it. Although part of him was glad that he was holding his own against a Jounin in his regular state. The results of his training were paying off. However, after thinking about it, Naruto did not worry about how Owl'd come out the victor. He knew he had more stamina and chakra than Shiro, so all he had to do was wither him down, and eventually he would come out the winner. Shiro, on the other hand, had a better idea. The Yukinin then proceeded to perform several hand seals that Naruto did not recognize. A rectangular sheet of ice materialized in the air beside Shiro, facing the white-haired man. However, this ice looked different. It looked stronger, and held a perfect reflection of the man beside it, like a mirror. Shiro spoke, "I think it's about time I end this nonsense." Naruto was shocked when Shiro suddenly stepped into the ice sheet beside him, like it was some kind of portal. The sound of crackling ice came from directly behind Naruto, causing him to jump forward and turn around out of instinct. Behind him was an identical piece of ice, except Shiro was somehow in it holding up a hand seal. Shiro's next words reminded Naruto of a ninja he had fought 4 years ago, Hitotsu, Makyo Hayasho. Suddenly, 11 identical ice mirrors shot out on both sides of the zone Shiro was in, surrounding Naruto on all sides as they levitated above the ground. Then 8 more came out the top of the bottom row and shifted over so they were in the spaces between the 12 below them. These 8 were slightly angled towards the ground. Finally one last ice mirror formed above the rest, facing the ground. Shiro's image was reflected within all the mirrors that surrounded Naruto. Naruto looked on in slight worry, trying to figure out a way out of the place. If he recalled his fight with Haku, the only reason he and Sasuke survived was because he was forced to use Kyuubi's chakra. That, and Haku had not wanted to kill them to begin with. Naruto knew Shiro would not be holding back in that department. Sakura saw her teammate's predicament and was about to head over to him. She was was stopped when Kakashi grabbed her wrist with his left hand. She turned to her sensei in disbelief. "What are you doing? We have to help him." Kakashi gave her a disapproving glance. "Sakura, Naruto ordered for us to interfere. His word is final." Sakura clenched her teeth, mad at the fact that Naruto was Hokage and stupidly ordered them not to help. "Naruto, if you die, I'll never forgive you." Back within the ice mirrors, Shiro's voice rang around the area. "This is the most powerful Yuki clan technique." Shiros from all around came flying out their respectively mirrors. There was too many of them and they were too quick for Naruto to do anything as they assaulted Naruto from all sides in an array of fists. In actuality, there was only one Shiro doing all the damage. However, the demonic Isamir's powers reflected the light of Shiro's body in a way that made it appear like there were multiple Shiros. After their attack, the Shiro clones all went back to their mirrors. Shiro's voice rang through Theria once again. "It is alright to tremble in despair." Naruto slowly got to his feet after receiving the beating from Shiro. Naruto wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, smirking after he heard the man's words. "Please, I've seen it before. Nothing special." Naruto's words visibly surprised Shiro, but he quickly regained his composure. "Oh, so you've come into contact with another Yuki member. That's surprising, considering they have been wiped out." Shiro then smirked darkly, "But I'm sure you've never seen it like this." The man and his multiple copies held up a single hand seal. Shiro said one word: "Stabilize." The levitating mirrors grew in size and connected to one another. The shape of the dome started to change, and the area expanded, giving Naruto more room. Where it was once a dome, it was now a large rectangular ice box that was 3 times the size. Naruto looked around and could only see large reflections of himself in the walls, roof, and ground. Although he could not see Shiro, his voice could be heard sporadically around the area. "This is the epitome of demonic ice mirrors. These mirrors are identical to the ones your friends destroyed. There is no escape for you, and no one will be able to help you out. Hell, no one will even be able to see the Hokage's great demise. This fight is over." Naruto's ear twitched at Shiro's last couple of words. His voice picked up in slight excitement, but he kept his eyes shadowed by his hair, "So no one can see us?" Shiro thought the question was strange, but thought nothing of it. He materialized himself from the ground in front of Naruto. He was covered in a suit of well-defined ice armor. He was God in this realm, so there was nothing to worry about. Indeed, no one can see out or in these walls. "Your fate is set." "Well, then." Naruto picked his head up. His irises were red and his pupils were slit. Shiro, once again, remembered what fear felt like. This fight really is over. The coalition from Konoha and Yuki, watching from afar, were suddenly washed over by an empowering wave of chakra. Koyuki, Fubuki, and Kakashi had never felt anything like it. It was warm and embracing. It was like the chakra was actually alive. Sai and Sakura had only felt it once before, the time when Naruto had fought pain. They all watched in silent shock as a large crack suddenly spread across all the sides of the icebox. A second later, the figure of ices hattered, and the chakra washing over them instantly vanished. Naruto stood within the middle of the falling particles of ice, holding a dead Shiro by the throat. Naruto's piercing blue eyes slowly turned to that of his audience, and a smile broke out across his face. "I think it's about time we all returned home." Naruto looked over his paperwork slowly, eyeing it with great annoyance. He and his team had just gotten back from Haru no Kuni earlier that day. Unfortunately for him, he did not have the luxury of relaxation like his teammates did. He intended to give them another mission later that day because they needed every able ninja to be twice as vigilant in order to show other villages that they were still the powerful Konohagaku or no Sato. However, he wanted to give them some time to rest after that difficult mission, more so Kakashi than anyone else because of the state he was in. He had been put in the hospital when they got back, just to make sure there was nothing wrong with him. Naruto leaned back in his chair and intertwined his fingers, his mind wandering to the day after he defeated Shiro, and the day they left the Land of Spring. "There's nothing I can't say to make you stay a little longer?" Koyuki asked, holding both of Naruto's hands with hers as they faced one another. Behind the princess were Fubuki and a brigade of warriors. They were standing near the border of Haru no Kuni after escorting Team 7 there. Naruto shook his head in the negative. Sorry Koyuki him, but I've edged at my own village I have to take care of. Koyuki nodded quietly, disheartened, but in understanding. I know. Well, it was certainly fun. Come back anytime. You and your Pipa here always welcomed. Thank you Koyuki-hime. Farewell. Naruto said before turning back to his team and the large coalition of workers that would be traveling back to Konoha with them. As per the agreement he and Koyuki had made in his letters to her. Naruto stood up from his chair and turned toward the windows watching his village as the many workers went about their construction. It was late in the day so the sun was minutes from disappearing under the horizon. He was growing tired of his paperwork. There was also something he wanted to work on now that the Umbu were currently not following him, having not been informed of his return yet. He did not intend to call them back until tomorrow, so this was opportune time to practice the one thing that had been plaguing his mind since defeating Pain. Naruto went around his desk, leaving his paperwork there. He left his scroll leaned up against his desk, not bothering to bring it with him. On his way out the office he told Emiko where he would be, just in case something was to happen to the village in his absence. Naruto stood in the middle of a lush green field. This plain was quite large and further from Konoha by several miles than the one he usually trained in. Now that he was so far from his village, and there was no one to see him, he could practice using Mazame. Naruto wanted to keep his control over the Kyuubi's chakra to himself. There were several reasons why he kept it a secret. The first tone was so he could always have an ace in the hole that no one would know of. Secondly, he did not know how people would react to seeing him in Mazame. Lastly, he did not want people asking him questions, because, honestly, he knew about as much as they did when it came to his new powers. As of yet anyway. Hell, Sakura and Kakashi had berated him with a million questions on their way back to Konoha, confused as to what he had done to kill Shiro. Naruto could only hazard a guess at the number of questions he would get if the entire ninja village found out about Mazame. However, now that he was alone, he could finally find out some of its secrets. At least he hoped. Naruto slowly concentrated and activated Mazame like it was natured. The fiery yellow chakra enveloped him instantly, leaving him in his cloaked form. The 9 cut-up ends of his cloak flickered in the light breeze that passed by. Now that Naruto was actually in a peaceful situation at the time Mazame was activated, he could finally feel the amount of power that coursed through him. It was like nothing he had ever felt. He had more energy, more strength. He felt lighter, faster. The feeling was euphoric. His adrenaline was skyrocketing, and he just wanted to move. In the blink of the eye, Naruto crossed the several hundred-yard-long field, landing on the grass elegantly. Naruto looked down to his hands with a smile, having never felt better in his life. Naruto thanked Kyuubi over and over in his head, grateful for this wonderful gift the Biju had given him. The Uzumaki jumped around the field in pure ecstasy, having a surplus of energy. Had there been any onlookers, all they would have been able to see was a yellow streaking light that zipped around the field as if it had no idea where it was going. Naruto came to stop by sliding across the grass as his speed carried him further. Even after his quick movements around the field, he had yet to feel any sort of fatigue. Hell, even his breathing pace had not picked up. The Uzumaki then looked off into the distance, and spotted a tree 100 yards away. The Rokudame Hokage pulled his arm back with his fingers open. He shot his arm forward and pumped Kyuubi's chakra into it. Had the desired effects. The chakra around the arm grew slightly bigger in size and extended across the air, aiming for the tree. It never reached the tree, only getting about 40 yards before Naruto found it too difficult to control and had to retract it back. The 6th Hokage looked down at the chakra covering his hand that had just expanded, now that it was normal. He brought the same hand up in front of him, with the palm facing the sky. He brought his other hand over the first one and began making quick motions with one on top, trying to create a raise-non while in his current state. The Uzumaki concentrated chakra to his hand, a ball of blue chakra slowly beginning to form. Naruto smiled when the raise-non was moments from being formed. However, his smile faltered when he felt a sudden change in the nature of his chakra. The chakra sphere flashed a purplish color before wavering unevenly. It subsequently exploded, which sent Naruto skidding across the ground. Naruto slowly picked himself up and looked at his hand, slightly surprised to find it unharmed. It seemed that while Naruto was in Mazame mode, the Kyuubi's chakra could still screw with his chakra control. From that try, Naruto could tell that the Kyuubi's chakra was fighting his own, wanting to consume and overpower his own chakra. It seemed that even without a consciousness, Kyuubi's chakra still had a mind of its own. He would have to practice more if he was wanted to learn to use jutsu while in Mazame. This made Naruto wonder about something. He spread out his stance, taking a different approach this time. Naruto pushed all of Kyuubi's chakra to the surface, the yellow chakra erupting from him in all directions. The earth shook around him as he growled, feeling powerful chakra lash out. Several tendrils of chakra that were emitting the furthest from him slammed into the ground, uprooting large sections of earth and making the area a rigid mess to the once serene plain. Naruto kept this pace up for a good 20 minutes before suddenly collapsing onto his hands and knees, his Mazame mode deactivating. The Uzumaki stared at the ground, a heavy layer of sweat cascading down his face and onto the dirt. His chakra had wiped out all the grass around him in a 50-yard radius. Naruto panted profusely, surprised that the Kyuubi's chakra could affect him in such a way. He had used a great deal of the Kyuubi's chakra just now. There was still more, but his body could not take any more. He had finally found a weakness to Mazame. He could use Kyuubi's chakra to his heart's content. However, there was a certain point to where his body could no longer take it. Even with it under his control, the demonic chakra was still dangerous to his body. An idea then popped into Naruto's head. One that could possibly get them killed. However, he was too curious for his own good. He needed to find out how far his body could take being in Mazame mode. This would allow him to know his limit of use with the chakra cloak. He just had to be very careful. With that in mind, Naruto got to his feet, readying himself once more. He took a deep breath before channeling Kyuubi's chakra to the surface once more, Mazame forming instantly. Only a minute passed, and Naruto had fallen onto one knee. He kept the chakra coming, not stopping. Another minute passed and Naruto found himself looking down at the ground on all fours. He defiantly did not stop. Soon enough a surge of pain shot through his body and Naruto almost lost his consciousness. The Uzumaki then knew he had to stop. However, to his horror, he found he could not rein in the Kyuubi chakra. It continued to erupt out of him under its own will. Naruto's body lurched forward as he dug his forehead into the ground, a horrid pain coursing through him. He let out a loud guttural yell. The yellow chakra that surrounded him started to flicker, turning a shade of crimson. Naruto's body shook with spasm. The red chakra became bubbly and compressed onto him, turning into a second layer of skin over his clothing. The 9 ends to the bottom of his cloak lengthened until they appeared as chakra tails, connected together at the base of his tailbone. His skin started to peel off, the chakra surrounding him doing more harm than good. It felt like he was bathing in lava. Naruto remained on his knees, but snapped his body upright, letting out an inhuman roar. The man's eyes were a solid white and the skin on his face began to peel off and evaporated from the heat that his cloak released. The parts of Naruto's skin that were now gone revealed a very dark shade of red underneath it, that was identical to when he used 4 tails against Orochimaru. His canines were larger than normal, and his hair had grown out some, making it appear untamed and animalistic. This is no good, Naruto told himself. His body lurched forward, the sound of bones breaking echoed in the area. His body twisted into some brutal positions as the Kyuubi's demonic chakra was slowly taking over. I'm going to lose control. What should I do? Although his eyes were completely white, he could still see. Naruto spotted the trees that surrounded the plain off in the distance. He quickly got an idea. The transforming boy used whatever energy he had left to sprint towards the foliage on all fours. His body exploded in even more pain, but it did not deter him from his goal. The Uzumaki got to the edge of the plain and went head first into the trunk of a tree. Naruto ran through several more trees the same way, knocking over several before landing in a heated mess unconscious. Several hours passed before Naruto's eyes slowly flickered open. The Uzumaki groaned in pain, his body still feeling the effects of his stupid curiosity. Naruto was upright against the base of a tree. Hello okayed at the destruction he had caused, not realizing at the time how much he did. There was a 30-yard trail of destroyed bark and fallen over trees between him and the field. Some of the bark on thick ground even looked burned, a symptom his red chakra caused. Naruto cursed at himself for being so rash. Well, he had gotten what wanted. Luckily, no one but him got hurt. The Uzumaki picked himself up and touched his face. Naruto let out a quick yelp at the pain that stung his cheek. He pulled his orange t-shirt sleeves back and spotted several patches of his skin that were a bright red color. The Uzumaki knew he probably had the same burn marks on his face, which had just caused him the pain. So now he had found even a bigger weakness. If he used Mazame too long, he could lose control of it and revert to a mindless state. That's just great, Naruto told himself sarcastically as he walked back into the plane. He looked up into the sky and saw the moon overhead, knowing it was probably the middle of the night. The Uzumaki began his way back to his village. He now knew what he had to do. There was only one way he would ever come to truly understand Mazame. Naruto would have to find another Jinhiriki // The next day came and found Naruto sitting behind his desk doing more paperwork, the eternal curse of Hokage strong as ever. Naruto had yet to call back his Umbu, but would do so later on in the day. The Uzumaki heard a knock on the door, and told them to enter. Emiko came in saying, "NaruSaku is here to see you." Naruto smiled saying, "Great. Send him in." Emiko left to get him. The Uzumaki had been thinking about whom he wanted his advice or to be before he had left for Haru no Kuni. Naruto was to fill 3 positions that dealt solely with the Hokage. They were the secretary, advisor, and assistant. He found no reason to change his secretary, so he still had to pick a person for the other 2. He had yet to find a suitable assistant because they were supposed to be highly trained and competent enough to handle most matters the Hokage dealt with. They were also supposed to have a close relationship with the Hokage for many different reasons. Naruto had thought about a couple people, but decided against them for one reason or another. As for the advisor, Naruto had thought about just getting Shikamaru's dad, Shikaku, to do it since he was Tsunade's advisor, but thought against it at the last moment. He was closer to Shikamaru, and thus felt more comfortable having him around to talk to than his father. There was only one problem. Absolutely not. I refuse. Shikamaru stated blatantly the moment he entered the office, continuing with, "It's just too troublesome." Naruto sighed, rubbing his temples in annoyance, an action he would find himself doing for years to come. Shikamaru was just too much of a lazy bastard for his own good. Naruto cracked a forced smile, moving his hands down to his lap as he spoke. "We haven't seen each other for over a month now, and this is the first thing you have to say to me." It was Shikamaru's turn to sigh, but in a more exasperated way. "I've known you for almost my entire life. I'm pretty sure our friendship has passed the point where we need to go about greeting one another no matter how long we haven't seen each other." Naruto's lips twitched in anger, but his smile did not falter. The Uzumaki did not know how Shikamaru did it, but the Nara always knew how to get under his skin quickly. Although he was faking the smile, Naruto could not help but mumble, "Why you, Shikamaru?" I'd the 6th, still in quite some shock that it was Naruto sitting behind that desk. No matter what he had been told, seeing it just made the fact all the more real. Shikamaru shook his head lightly at the thought, bringing his attention to the current events. "As I said, I refuse. Being an advisor is just too troublesome." "Oh. Come on, you can at least give it a shot," Naruto pleaded innocently. "No." Shikamaru deadpanned. "You would get free reign of my office whenever you'd like. No. You'd have almost as much power as an elder. No. Your opinion will be very important when it comes to the betterment of the village. No. You'd get to see my beautiful face a lot more often. Hell. No. Well. What the fuck do you want?" Naruto shouted exuberantly, shaking his arms up and down in animated frustration. "I don't want anything," the Nara stated, raising his voice ever so slightly. "It's just too much responsibility that I don't want." Naruto became quiet after that, thinking about what words to use next. The Uzumaki then remembered something Shikamaru had said to him after he had found out Jiraiya had died and was in a depressed state. "I thought it was time for us to become the adults, Shikamaru." The Nara mentally cursed at himself for not seeing that coming. Shikamaru understood what Naruto meant, but being advisor just sucked in the Nara's opinion. He was well versed when it came to the position from being around his father all the time, and had just never been interested in it in the slightest. Shikamaru remained silent, trying to come up with the right words to say. Please. Naruto's words gained Shikamaru's attention. The Nara saw the look his Hokage was giving him. It was almost begging him to accept the position. It would mean a lot. How could I say no to that? Shikamaru thought to himself, feeling bad. The Nara had come to realize that Naruto needed him in that position more so as a friend than as an advisor. The boy genius knew that most of the people Naruto's age had yet to talk to him, yet alone see him since he became Hokage, and that was probably hurting the Uzumaki a lot more than it did them. Naruto was very emphatic about friendship, so for someone like him to be away from friends for so long must have been torture. Shikamaru sighed once more, knowing he had lost. Okay, I'll be your advisor. The young Hokage nearly jumped out of his seat. Yada. A small smile crept onto Shikamaru's face at seeing the way Naruto reacted to him accepting the job. The Nara let the man calm down. Ash made his way over to one of the windows. Shikamaru stared over the village and could not help but enjoy the view. Though the Nara would never openly admit it, the view was even better than the one where he usually stared up into the clouds with Choji. The Nara then thought that his new job would not be too bad after all. So, Naruto turned to the Nara, who continued to stare out the window. Do you have any questions about being advisor? Nope. Shikamaru continued to stare out the window, although, Ito have two questions pertaining to something else. Naruto went back to his paperwork, saying, fire away. Shikamaru stared out the corner of his eyes at Naruto, not wanting to miss his next expression. How come you haven't announced the fact that you're the Yondaime Hokage's son? Naruto dropped his pen and slowly turned his head towards Shikamaru, his face contorted in complete disbelief. How did I dash? Shikamaru smiled triumphantly, thinking Naruto's face was priceless before staring back over the village. The Nara had always speculated that was their connection, but Naruto's words had proven him correct. The resemblance is uncanny. Shit, if you didn't have those whisker-like marks on your cheeks, I'd have thought you were his twin brother. Naruto scratched his head, slightly nervous that others would start connecting the dots between him and the fourth. If you could keep that to yourself, it would be much appreciated. Don't worry, your secret is safe with me. If people are too dumb to figure it out for themselves, then they don't deserve to know. Shikamaru stated, easing Naruto's worries. However, you didn't answer the question. How come you haven't announced it? Now that I am your advisor, I got to tell you, you should definitely think about doing it. A lot of people will probably come to your side if they know you're the son of that man. No. Naruto said in a bittersweet tone that caught Shikamaru's attention. The Uzumaki was looking at his palms, smiling solemnly. I can take that chance. What? Shikamaru asked in silent shock, all his attention on the Uzumaki. While what you say may be true, Naruto said, it may very well have the opposite effect. Shikamaru was not getting where Naruto was coming from. How so? Naruto's gaze turned to the Nara. A lot of people see me in a new light after defeating Pain and saving Konoha. However, a great many of them, mostly ninja over our age, still hate me for what I contain. Naruto wanted to keep Kyuubi's death a secret, so he acted as if the Biju was still sealed within him. He knew Shikamaru was one of the select few in their generation that knew about the Kyuubi, so there was no point in trying to evade the subject. Although they no longer see me as the Kyuubi itself, they know that I am its container. When the people of this village see me, in the back of their minds they see the face of Kyuubi, and the expressions of their dying loved ones that were killed on that fateful night. They may hide it, they may fight urge of it, but if you truly hate something, that hatred will not disappear over the course of one night. If I do let out the info that my father was the fourth Hokage, it is impossible to predict how people will react. They may be overjoyed, they may be happy, they may be mad, they may be sad. Hell, maybe, just maybe, their hatred of me that I have worked so hard to change resurfaces and makes my job harder than it already is. Shikamaru knew where Naruto was coming from. At first the Nara had only seen Naruto being the fourth son as a good thing. But then again his opinion was in Naruto's favor. Shikamaru had never grown up hating Naruto like their older generations had. Most of the populace hated Naruto growing up for something he had no control over. They very well could get angry if they discovered the fourth Hokage was Naruto's father. Not only did Naruto have to worry about his own reputation, but that of his father's as well. That was a lot of stress to deal with. Naruto continued on, saying, "People are unpredictable, Shikamaru. Who knows how they will react to the news? Maybe if I do announce me heritage, people will see me in a better light, and that's what gets me elected. However, another part of me does not wish to be in my father's shadow. That feeling was actually one of the reasons I chose you to be my advisor." Shikamaru stared at Naruto in a new understanding, having not looked that deep into his selection to be advisor. What Naruto said was true. Shikamaru was adamant about not being stuck in his father's shoes. It was why he always tried to do things himself, and no ask for his father's help on anything. He wanted to do things his way, discover things for himself, and not be constantly reminded that they was Shikaku's son. I understand. Shikamaru stated. Naruto smiled at his advisor's words. Good. Now what was your next question? Shikamaru shook his head, having almost forgotten he had another own. Do you really think your promise to complete Konoha's reconstruction within 2 months will be enough to gain you a majority in the Jounin vote? Although Shikamaru was just a Chunin, he knew almost all the Evas when it came to Konoha's politics because of his father. It was also widely known that Naruto had promised the daimyo the finished construction of Konoha within 2 months. Naruto went back to his paperwork, finding it to be an easy question. Well, of course I do. It's common knowledge that it took the Shodaime Hokage half a year to construct Konohagaku no Sato. He also did it entirely by himself. However, at the time it was only about half the size of the Konoha nowadays, so, in my opinion, I believe what I'm doing is even greater. People will acknowledge this, I'm sure of it. Shikamaru took in the info, and countered with Naruto's own words from earlier, people are unpredictable. Naruto understood the Nara's meaning, that's true. So, then why not do something else to prove your worth as Hokage? Naruto's eyes did not avert his paperwork, but his voice sounded like he had already thought through this kind of idea. Oh, like what? Shikamaru shrugged. I don't know, something to make the people understand your convictions. Naruto continued in the same voice, Laiiak. Shikamaru stayed quiet, trying to think of something. However, it was a lot harder than the Nara had originally thought. Naruto's chuckle knocked Shikamaru's thought pattern out of whack. See? It's a lot harder than you would think. Shikamaru was silent, but nodded. Naruto continued, like I said, people are unpredictable. The slightest thing I do could have the biggest ramifications among the populace. Something small could blow up into something huge, and something big could have no impact at all. The only way to ensure that people will follow what you say is to show them your convictions through action. Only then will they start to believe in you and listen to you. Shikamaru nodded, silently shocked that Naruto understood the role of Hokage so well. This was certainly not the same Uzumaki that Shikamaru had always known. This Naruto was a lot more mature. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Naruto ushered the person in to find that it was once again Emiko. Hokage-sama. There is a large coalition of people from Hashigakura no Sato, along with their acting daimyo, and self-proclaimed Hashikage, waiting outside the main gate. There is also a small entourage of bodyguards with the daimyo of Na no Kuni, Land of Flowers, whom is also waiting right outside the walls. Emiko informed the two. Naruto nodded, remembering that he had set a meeting with the daimyo of Na no Kuni, Haruna. However, Sumaru, the Hoshikage, was not supposed to show for a couple more days. Apparently he took it upon himself to show up a lot earlier than intended. Naruto thanked Emiko and told her she could leave. He then turned to Shikamaru, grabbing his sage scroll and Hokage hat off a coat hanger on the wall. Want to tag along? Shikamaru shrugged, and yawned into his hand. It's probably going to be troublesome, but sure. // Naruto and Shikamaru arrived to the main gates to find them closed. Naruto now had on his Hokage hat. The two body flickered to the top off the walls. They found roughly 10 leanin on guard duty leaning over the fence that framed the edges of the top of the wall, peering down at the two delegations of foreign political leaders. The 10 ninja then noticed their leader. They immediately lined up in a straight line towards the Rokyudame, and bowed. At ease, Naruto said, waving them off. Shikamaru silently shook his head. It was going to take him a while to get used to this. You can open the gates, Naruto ordered. They mean us no harm. One of the gate guards nodded and walked over to the lever connected to the large contraption that operated the gates. Right away, Hokage-sama. The Chunin pulled the lever with a heavy grunt. The large wooden crafted gates slowly opened, releasing a slow, but loud, creaking noise. Naruto and Shikamaru used the time it took for the gates to open to jump down to ground level. The two delegations walked in, their daimyos being carried in elegantly crafted carriages almost right beside one another. The convoy from Hoshigaku was quite larger than those from Na-no-Kuni. Naruto and Shikamaru could tell the two apart by their colors. All of the people from Hoshigaku wore different shades of purple clothing and robes, in honor of their mystical peacock method, which was known for giving their chakra purple hue. On the other hand, those from Na-no-Kuni wore different arrays of fresh colors like yellow, green, and blue to match their exuberant lifestyle. Na-no-Kuni was known for being home to some of the most hospitable and kind people in the entire world. The land was abundant in a variety of exotic flowers and mystical landmarks, making it a place anyone would want to call home. Haruna had already sent most of her workers and a portion of villagers to Konoha, so she only showed up in her carriage with several bodyguards that were trained in their flower arts. On the other hand, Sumaru had waited to send anyone, for reasons Naruto still did not figure out, something about seeing how far he had come. The Uzumaki did not really care then, or now. He was just happy that Sumaru had actually showed up with a mass of workers from the looks of them. The self-proclaimed Hokage was also an astage coach drawn by horses, and surrounded by bodyguards at the front of their entourage. The two delegations were almost upon them when Naruto and Shikamaru noticed there was some kind of commotion between the two carriages. From the sound of it, there seemed to be some yelling going on between the two horse-drawn carts, but everyone walking with them seemed to pay it no mind. Naruto's keen hearing was able to slightly pick up on the two daimyo's argument. Come on one date. That's all I'm asking. Why would you not want to go out with a stunningly dashing and strong Hokage such as myself? For the last time, I said no. Maybe if you weren't such an egocentric maniac. That seemed to be the end of their conversation as the door to the carriage holding Haruna swiftly swung open. The daimyo of Na-no-Kuni came stepping out, holding up her multicolored gown so she would not trip. One of her bodyguards held her hand as she made her last step to the ground. She looked almost identical to herself from 3 years ago. She was already in her early 20s when she first met Naruto, so there was not much more physical changing to be done. She was scowling harshly, in a foul mood after having to deal with the daimyo of Kuma no Kuni, land of bears. Across from her was Sumaru. He opened the door to his carriage at a more elegant pace before taking a couple heavy steps down to the ground. He was adorned in the Hokage variation his village had created in resemblance to the 5 great hidden villages. It was a bulky white robe that reached down to the ankles and had a cage height, but was colored purple with the kanji for star at its front. Sumaru crossed his arms, huffing in annoyance at Haruna's defiance. The two walked side by side, even though they seemed to be honoring the other's presence. They walked up to Naruto and Shikamaru in silence. Haruna's attitude did a complete 180 when she saw Naruto. Naruto-kun. I'm so happy to finally see you. The daimyo walked forward and embraced the unsuspecting Hokage in a hug. Naruto thanked Haruna for being a lot calmer than Koyuki was when they first met. The Uzumaki returned the hug. Thankful life for Haruna, no one was able to see the dark blush on her cheeks. A clearing of the throat got their attention. Sumaru made his presence known, finding their interaction to be quite annoying. A tick mark appeared on Haruna's forehead as the other daimyo spoiled her embrace with Naruto. She turned on her heel in irritation. You haven't left yet. Sumaru fired back in anger. I was asked to come here as well, you harpy of a woman. Harpy? Haruna stammered out in disbelief that someone would call her that. Who do you think you are? Naruto then made his presence known, sweat dropping as he said blankly, I didn't ask for any of you to come here. You invited yourselves. The two daimyo were creating quite the commotion. A large amount of civilians and ninja from Konoha were starting to clump up in groups around the area. Finding the scene to Beko medic. Sumaru turned to Naruto, as if he had not even noticed him beforehand. The Hokage smirked haughtily, walking up to the Uzumaki till they were less than a foot from each other. Sumaru's slightly faltered when he noticed how the two differed in height. Although the two were the same age, the years had not been too kind to the Hokage. Naruto had always been around 5 feet 4 inches since coming back from his training with Jiraiya. However, since then he had grown several inches, becoming 5 feet 9 inches, which was 2 inches taller than the average male his age. Sumaru had gotten the shortened end of the stick for his entire life, like how Naruto had in his younger years. Sumaru was reaching the end of puberty and he was only 5 feet 3 inches. To say the least, Sumaru was already slightly annoyed that Naruto had grown taller than him, even though the Uzumaki was shorter than him when they first met. Sumaru did not let his smirk falter, knowing that height meant little when it came to ninja. He spoke up, speaking arrogantly, "It's been a while, Naruto. Sorry to say, but you don't look much different." Naruto cracked a fake smile, indulging the man to some banter. "Same to you. I'm glad you brought the help I asked for." The Uzumaki had never liked Sumaru, even when they were younger. He felt bad for the guy for everything he had to go through, but his obnoxious attitude would always deter those kinds of feelings. Sumaru was exactly like Sasuke. He was conceited and narcissistic. The only thing that made him different to Sasuke was the fact he had no power to back up his words. Sasuke could follow through with what he said, but all Sumaru could do was rely on the mystical peacock method. If that failed, then Sumaru would fall. It was the harsh truth. Of course. Sumaru's words gained Naruto's attention from his thoughts. "They will help, under one condition." Naruto quirked an eyebrow. "And what's that?" "Fight me." Sumaru pointed at himself to further his point. The man's swords gained several gasps over the crowd of people that had developed in a wide arc around them. Naruto remained silent, but spoke up when Sumaru looked to be waiting for his reply. "You can't be serious." Sumaru got annoyed at the Hokage's words. Why was it such a big deal? Sumaru put his hands on his hips, sneering, "What's the big deal? You're the Hokage, and I'm the Hokage. Let's see which one of us is stronger. I mean, it's pretty obvious I am, but I want to see the look on your people's faces when I kick your ass." His words earned him a chorus of boos from all the people of Konoha surrounding them. There were a couple cheers from the group of Hoshigaku workers, but their cheers were quieted by the number of people from Leaf that were now watching. Naruto mentally scoffed at Sumaru. He would have told the young daimyo that he really did not have the right to call himself Hokage, seeing as the title of Kage was only reserved for one of the leaders of the 5 great hidden villages, but he kept his mouth shut. Naruto shook his head, saying, "No. I will not fight you. There would be no point. I have stated what I am willing to do for your help in my village's reconstruction through my letter. If that is not good enough, then so be it." The Uzumaki turned around and began to walk away, much to the protest of his people. There was an assortment of shouts saying, "Kick his ass, Hokage-sama, you can beat him, Naruto, show him you shouldn't mess with Konoha ninja." Sumaru was shocked that Naruto had declined him. The Naruto he remembered would never do such a thing. Even Shikamaru was lightly taken aback by the young Hokage's answer. He quickly caught up to Naruto, having him stop so the Nara could talk to him. "Do you really think this is such a good idea?" Shikamaru asked. "You said earlier that the only way to get people to listen is to show them your convictions with action. Aren't you being a bit of hypocrite in this situation?" Naruto eyed his advisor silently as Sumaru called after the Uzumaki, saying, "What are you scared?" Haruna spoke angrily, "Stop being such an asshole." Naruto ignored the two's words, his eyes focused on Shikamaru's. The Uzumaki had never seen such a determined look in the NaruSaku before. Naruto's hearing picked up on the chatter around them between civilian and ninja. Is he not going to fight? Come on, Hokage-sama, show him. What's he doing? Some Hokage. That last sarcastic remark struck a chord in Naruto. This was not the impact he had wanted to make among his people. However, he never wanted to fight one of the daimyo. It just did not seem Hokage-like, but if his people wanted it done, then so be it. Naruto spun around, his cloak flapping in the wind. Naruto's expression became stern. Very well. You've got your fight. Sumaru grabbed the corner of his robe with one hand and the top of his hat with the other, throwing them off. They both landed on Haruna, who yelled angrily about being a coat hanger. Sumaru had on black ninja pants that were tied in bandages at the ankles. Had purple ninja sandals. His upper body had tight, light purple robes with long sleeves. A dark purple sash was tied around the waist, and extra cloth hung down to his knees between his legs. His Hoshigaku or headband with the symbol of a star was tied around his head, his hair slightly covering the protective item. The Godame Hokage spread out his stance, looking over to Haruna as he told her, "You and the rest should probably back up to a safe distance like Naruto's people. Things could get serious." Haruna grumbled some profanities, but knew she had no place in a fight between shinobi. She walked back to the two entourages, having them back up as per Sumaru's command. Naruto saw this and pulled off his hat, handing it to Shikamaru. Naruto was in his normal clothing wear, but he did not have the chakra beads on his wrists or ankles, or the weight vest underneath his upper body attire. He had yet to summon them from their scroll after storing them before his sex scene with Koyuki. The Uzumaki took several steps forward, getting into his own stance. For all Naruto knew, Sumaru could have gotten 1,000 times stronger, so he wanted to be ready. The combatants eyed one another while all in attendance watched with bated breath for the two to start. Shikamaru stood near the twat, his arm raised, out of their line of fire as he made himself the proctor of their match. Suddenly, someone new spoke up in a slow and calm voice, "Mind if I join?" The cages and everyone around turned their head to the entrance off gates. They were all surprised to see the Godame Kazekage and his two siblings walking up to the three in the middle of the circle of people. There were several gasps among the crowd at Kazekige's unexpected appearance. Naruto's guard dropped and his face brightened up at his old friend's presence. Gaara. The Uzumaki ignored Sumaru, jogging over to the three. He gave the Kazekage a friendly embrace that Gaara happily returned before the two let go of one another. Naruto waved at Gaara's older siblings. Kankura had his hood down because of the humidity that currently flocked Konoha, leaving his spiky brown locks to flow in the wind. The puppet user chuckled, seeing the predicament Naruto was in with the daimyo of Kuma no Kuni, getting into trouble like always. Shikamaru made his way over to the group, saying hello to the sand party. He eyed Tamari, saying, "It's good to see you. You look great." Tamari smirked at the man's choice of words, so the lazy genius does know when to compliment a lady. "Oh my god, you two, just get a fucking room already," Kankura said blatantly, cleaning out his ear with his pinky. His words earned him a swift punch to the head. Gaara and Naruto ignored the three's conversation, having one off their own. "You know you're welcome here whenever you like, Gaara, but I gotta ask, what brings you here?" Naruto asked in wonderment. "I just had to see it for myself." Gaara informed the blonde that you were really the Rokudame Hokage. Naruto gave the Kazekage a cheeky smile. "What can I say? Dreams to come true." Gaara had the smallest of smiles as he nodded. "Indeed they do." "Akem." Sumaru cleared his voice loudly with his arms crossed in frustration. He was growing tired of being ignored. "Are we going Todo this or not?" Naruto's smile faltered, remembering the nuisance that he had been dealing with moments ago. He turned to Gaara quickly, apologizing, "Sorry, we will catch up after I deal with him." Gaara glanced over to Sumaru. "You want me to deal with him?" Sumaru heard the Kazekage's words, making him smirk arrogantly. "Oh, don't you worry, Kazekage. We're going to have our fight once I am done mopping the floor with Naruto here." Gaara quirked an eyebrow, not knowing if the daimyo was strong enough to back his words, or just too overconfident for his own good. The Uzumaki walked up and readied himself, while Shikamaru followed him over. There were a number of cheers from the people watching, giving their Hokage the best of luck. The Nara held up his arm once more. "This is just a spar, so do not go for the kill. Also, please, for the love of God, try not to destroy anything." Shikamaru brought his hand down, yelling, "Fight!" Sumaru immediately dashed forward with great speed that impressed the audience. However, Naruto narrowed his eyes wondering if the black-haired Hokage was holding back or so mething. Because to the 6th Hokage, Sumaru looked kinda off slow. The Uzumaki sidestepped Sumaru's first attack like it was nothing. Then the Hokage quickly turned on his heel and unleashed a volley of punches. Naruto raised an eyebrow as he continued to effortlessly dodge all of the Hokage's attacks as he weaved around the area, not once even being grazed by the other's fists. Naruto then saw an opening when Sumaru tried packing a lot of thrust into one of his punches, carrying the Hokage further than intended. The Uzumaki ducked under it and positioned himself to the side of Sumaru. Naruto looked at the side of Sumaru's face, seeing the Hokage move in slow motion. Sumaru's expression told Naruto that the Hokage had not realized the Uzumaki had dodged his punch. The Rokudaime Hokage mentally shrugged and planted his knee into Sumaru's stomach, sending him rolling back several yards. When Sumaru stopped, he picked himself up, panting heavily at his attempts to hit the Hokage that did not come up with any results. The Uzumaki looked at Sumaru quizzically, confused at what was wrong with the Hokage that was making him act so sluggish. The black-haired boy's expression did not give the blonde any answers. Naruto's ear twitched when he heard what some of the onlookers were saying. Wow. Those two are so fast, I can hardly see them. A civilian said. Yeah. It's amazing. I hope Hokage-sama wins. Another civilian said. I can't believe those two are so evenly matched. A naive genin shouted. Your eyes are just not able to keep up yet. One of the few jounin present clarified for his group of genin, while the Hokage is fast in his own right, Hokage-sama's speed is far greater. So that's it. Naruto told himself as he looked down to his hand. There was never anything wrong with Sumaru. My level of speed has just increased. I hadn't noticed because I had only fought Shiro since taking off the weights, and he was almost at Kakashi-sensei's level. Naruto closed his hand into a fist, his attention shifting back to his opponent. While Naruto had been busy thinking to himself, Sumaru began making hand seals. The Hokage finished the unique set of hand seals, saying, Kyujaku Myaho. The light purple chakra that all Starnin were known for came sprouting out the Hokage's back. Sumaru's mysterious peacock method was twice as big as the average user because of his years of training and control over the jutsu. The display of flayed chakra behind Sumaru earned several U's and AHS from the crowd. Naruto did not bat an eye. Sumaru was not interested in the audience fascination into his jutsu, upset that he had yet to lay a finger on Naruto. Sumaru shifted his hands into a different seal, saying angrily, Zan. The purple chakra contorted and shot over Sumaru towards Naruto, twisting into a ravenous torrent. Naruto jumped out of the way at the last second, the chakra smashing into the ground and making several cracks across it. Shikamaru sucked his teeth, annoyed the Hokage had not listened to him early. TCH, I said not to destroy anything. The two combatants ignored the Nara. Sumaru's spinning mass of Kakra picked itself up and chased after Naruto. The Uzumaki jumped around the Hokage, dodging the massive chakra. Sumaru was growing ever more impatient the longer Naruto played this cat-and-mouse game. He was also getting frustrated because nothing he seemed to do could even touch Naruto. Would you stop fucking around? Sumaru yelled angrily, whatever you've got, I can take it. Naruto flipped to the side, dodging Sumaru's attack once more. When the Uzumaki landed, his gaze met Sumaru's. The Rokudaime spoke calmly, if that's what you want. Naruto closed the distance between the two in the blink of an eye. Sumaru's eyes widened at the display of speed. He tried to bring up his arms as a shield, but he was too slow to do anything. The Hokage helplessly watched as Naruto's fist was flying towards his face. Sumaru knew he was moments from losing. Is this the true power of one of the 5 great cages? It's incredible. How could any minor village hope to produce a ninja of this caliber? Naruto's fist connected with the right side of Sumaru's face. The Uzumaki had sent a burst of chakra to his fist at the last moment to make it slightly more damaging. The hit instantly knocked the teenager unconscious, causing his jutsu to deactivate. The attack sent the Godaime Hokage sliding across the ground for about 20 yards, where his people soon flocked to him. There was a chorus of cheers from the people of Konoha at the performance their Hokage had just put on. Now that the fight was over, a lot of the spectators figured it was time to leave. The crowds of people began to disperse, going about their way. Naruto walked up to Sumaru, who was quickly awakening. Haruna ran up beside Naruto, saying, "That was awesome. Yous how'd him." Shikamaru, Gaara, and his siblings came up just as Naruto thanked Haruna. Sumaru's eyes fluttered open to see some of his own people helping him to his feet. He thanked them and then spotted Naruto near them. A solemn smile graced the Hokage's lips. Accepting his loss wasn't much of a fight, but it was fun. Sumaru offered Naruto a handshake that the Uzumaki quickly returned with his own smile. Indeed. Naruto then turned to the other political leaders, asking, "Now who's hungry?" Mo, where the hell is Shikamaru and Naruto? Ino whined out loud, sitting in between Chuji and Sakura. The rest of the Konoha 11, excluding Shino, Naruto, and the lazy genius were seated at a shaped booth to accommodate the number of them. They were located at one of the very select few civilian restaurants that had been nearest to the walls, which saved them from Pain's Shinra Tensei technique. The people who owned the restaurant treated them very kindly because of the teenagers' occupation. Plus, it was a small family-owned business and near the outskirts of Konoha, so not many people knew about it, which made it a nice, secluded place for the group of ninja to get away from their problems. It was also cool that they got their own spot in a more private place in their restaurant, so there would not be many people who saw the shenanigans they got into. This would only be the second time they had come here, yet they already had a handful of stories from their first experience there. A month and a half back, before Pain's attack, Sakura and Ino decided that their generation should be more of a close-knit bunch, so they come up with the idea to meet up once a month somewhere. They made sure that it would be a day that everyone could get free for so they could all hang out with each other. Everyone knew about the get-together, except for Naruto. Unfortunately, the week they started telling everyone about it was the same one that Naruto left to train with Fukazaku. The Uzumaki still did not know about it because no one had really seen him since he returned and beat Naruto. The only people that did were Ino, Tenten and Sakura. Ino and Tenten had completely blanked on the matter when he came to the Yamanaka's flower shop because they shocked to see him after so long, and that he was actually Hokage. In Sakura's case, at the time of her mission with him, she had been more worried about her friendship with Naruto than any stupid get-together. Although, she did beat herself up later when they had returned from Haru no Kuni for forgetting about it. Their last hope was on Shikamaru, who Ino had found out through Chuji, was going to Naruto's office to talk about being advisor. The Nara had made it clear to Chuji that he did not want the position, so everyone knew that Shikamaru was not going to take it. If there was one thing that was greater than his laziness, it was his fortitude to not do something he did not want to do. The blonde bombshell rested her head on her hand as she leaned over the table, a red hue gracing her cheeks. Mayan. Ino grumbled, leaning back onto the backrest of the bath. Her head followed her body, banging against the wood. Normally it would have hurt, but Ino's state of being did not allow her to feel anything. "I just want some eye candy. Man. She is so drunk." Kiba laughed out loud, on the opposite side off table. He was at the end so he could be next to Akamaru, who was lying on the ground beside the booth. One of the good things about having a ninja dog was that they were allowed into almost any establishment because of how well trained they were. Yeah. She's even drunker than usual. Chuji agreed. Last time she was the life of the party when she was wasted, but she's drank herself past that point. Sakura shook her head at her best friend. One of the main reasons Sakura and Ino had picked a civilian restaurant was so they could drink. Civilian establishments saw ninja as adults the moment they graduated the academy. They only had to show them their ninja ID. And they could drink all they wanted. Everyone mostly drank in moderation, except for Ino. The first time they came here, Ino got so drunk she was about to start stripping on their table had Sakura and Tenten not stopped her. After that the Yamanaka began flirting with their waiter, which did not turn out so good. It amazed Sakura that Ino was still a virgin. Tenten was sitting between her teammates, giggling into the back of her hand as she teased Niji by said, "Niji's here though. Is he not enough?" Niji turned his head away, trying to ignore his teammates' words. The only reason he even came to these things was because Tenten Lee and Hinata were the only people he hung out with outside off missions, so he had nothing better to do. It also helped that Naruto was supposed to be coming this time, which Niji was happy to hear about. "Ew, I'm not a fucking lesbian." Tenten Ino made a disgusted face, talking as if Niji was not 10 feet from him, Geez, that's like telling to be attracted to a girl. Tenten almost exploded in laughter. Niji's brow slightly furrowed, but did not say anything, knowing not to fight with a drunken girl. He learned his lesson the first time they were here when Ino made an obnoxious comment about his eyes. Hinata was too shy to say anything, but Niji was not. He just had yet to know how belligerent a drunk 16-year-old could get. He learned his lesson the hard way. I'm sure they will be here soon, Lee exclaimed. He was the only one that did not partake in the consumption of alcohol. The sole reason being he could not hold his liquor and would start causing havoc for everyone around. Shikamaru and Naruto will make Quiteth youthful entrance. Ino grunted at the Taijutsu specialist's optimism, reaching for one off-sake bottles on the table. Yeah, okay. Naruto's Hokage now, even if he knew about this, it's not like he is going to show up. He has got more important things to do now. No. One answered back to that at first, thinking about the fact that Naruto of all people was actually Hokage. Ino was the first one to say, I still can't believe it. That soon sprung up a conversation. How come? Choji asked, gaining everyone's attention. Out of every one of their peers, the Akimichi had been one of the few, other than Shikamaru, that knew Naruto would someday be Hokage. He's proven himself multiple times that he is strong enough to hold that title. Did you all think he always talked about being Hokage for nothing? Yeah, but come on. Kiba raised his voice slightly, a small tint of red starting to appear on his cheeks. This is Naruto. He was the dead last of the academy. How can someone like that become Hokage? Hard work, Lee said excitedly, his fist balling up into a fist in front of Ai's face. Lee's eyes shined with pride. Naruto-kun worked hard and strived for the position with all his heart. His youthful determination rewarded him with the position of Hokage. Choji nodded at his friend's words before looking at Kiba. Things can change, Kiba. Choji-kun is alright. Hinata spoke up, gaining everyone's attention because usually she never spoke up. They were surprised to see a little red on her cheeks because last time the female Hyuga did not drink a sip of alcohol, and Naruto-kun works so hard for everything in his life. He's more worthy of the title than anyone here. Alright. Alright. Kiba rose his hands up in defeat. Sakura was smiling at Hinata for defending the Uzumaki. The Haruna was starting to get a little tipsy and could not help but think that Hinata was so cute when she defended Naruto. Everyone knew the Hyuga heiress was head over heels for the Uzumaki, so it was adorable seeing her defend him when she normally said nothing. Sakura heard Ino grumble before slamming the sake bottle in her hand onto the table, surprising everyone. Listen. Hinata, Ino said while her upper body wavered back and forth, trying to keep herself upright. It's cute and all that you want Naruto's dick, but you got to be careful. Almost. Everyone got a blush at the words the Yamanaka used. Hinata's was the worst. Her whole head was red as a tomato, not believing Ino's words just now. Ino tried winking at the Hyuga, but it turned into some kind of weird blink, because now that he's Hokage, there will be a lot more women going after him. No. One seemed to read between the lines of Ino's words, except for the Hyuga girl she was talking to. Hinata's blush soon died down as she asked, "Hey, are you one of those girls, Ino-san?" Ino suddenly did what sounded like a hiccup and gasp combined, surprised by the forward question their shyest friend asked. The Yamanaka's cheeks were slightly redder now, which everyone was shocked to see. The most surprised was Sakura, who was looking at Ino like she had grown a second head. The Haruno could not believe that Ino of all people would have a small crush on Naruto. Whatever happened to Sasuke-kun? Did the Yamanaka not care for the Uchiha anymore? It was true that Naruto was becoming more attractive the older he got. He could even be considered good looking before he became Hokage. After the Uzumaki added the Jounin vest and cloak and became almost a carbon copy of his hero, the fourth Hokage, most of the females in Konoha would swoon over his attractiveness. Naruto was actually pretty hot. The Haruno suddenly shook her head, not believing she had just thought that. She shrugged it off as just the alcohol talking. Ino was about to defend herself, but a new voice abruptly appeared. Got room for one more. Everyone turned to see the lazy genius Shikamaru standing in front of their booth. The Nara looked around the booth to see if everyone was there as Kiba and Hinata moved in on their side to allow room for Shikamaru to sit. Shikamaru took his seat, and began petting Akamaru in Kiba's place, asking, "What's up?" Chuji was the first to say, the usual. "What took you so long?" "Well, I was going to talk to my dad when I remembered today was our get-together." "So where's Shino?" "Out. On a mission with his father." The Inyazuka answered, a little annoyed that Akamaru looked to be enjoying Shikamaru petting a bit too much. He couldn't get around it to be here. It was something about collecting flowers outside the village because our medics no longer have a greenery to produce them until a new one is constructed. "Better question," Ino abruptly said. Shikamaru was not surprised to see Ino so intoxicated. Most of his friends drank, just not to the point his female teammate did. The Yamanaka gave the Nara a slurred glare. "Where's Naruto?" Shikamaru sucked his teeth while waving off the waiter that was coming over to ask if he wanted anything. "TCH, I forgot to tell him sorry." Ino slammed the bottle on the table again in her drunken stupor. "Damn it, Shikamaru. How could a genius like you forget? That is a bit unusual." Sakura commented. "Yeah. What gives?" Tenten aided and Hinata wanted to know too, but did not say anything. Kiba chuckled. "Haha, oh how the great Nara has fallen." A tick mark appeared on Shikamaru's forehead as he closed hises and frowned, trying to keep his composure. "I was too busy getting persuaded into being his advisor for me to even remember." "So, you actually became his advisor?" Chuji asked his best friend in surprise. The others were shocked as well. Shikamaru nodded sharply to confirm it. "Wow, what happened to all that? There's no way in hell I will be an advisor." "Crap, you were spewing." Shikamaru had the decency to slightly blush in embarrassment and look away. "That Uzumaki's got a bit of a silver tongue." The Nara chose the wrong words because they got Ino to giggle perversely and say what she was thinking. "I wonder if that silver tongue is good for other certain things." Ino/Ino-san. Sakura and Hinata exclaimed with a deep red blush across their cheeks. The Harino had almost seen Naruto having sex, so it was kind of a sensitive subject matter when talking about Uzumaki. Tenten giggled at her girlfriend's antics. Ino looked offended that they yelled at her. "What, you girls were thinking it?" "Yeah. Right." Sakura denied, but Hinata did not say anything. Shikamaru did not want to be on this discussion topic anymore, so there was also the fight between Naruto and the daimyo of Kuma no Kuni that garnered all my attention. "Wait. Ino drew out. "Naruto fought a daimyo. I think I heard something about that," Kiba said, trying to think about what he heard. The Inyazuka had the best hearing out of everyone there, so he was usually the one that got most of the stories from the civilians he passed in the streets. "Well, he wasn't just any daimyo," Shikamaru explained. "His name's Sumaru and he is the self-proclaimed Godame Hoshikage from the land of bears." "Sumaru?" Tenten said out loud. Her hazy state of mind could not recall where she knew that name. "Why does that sound so familiar?" Niji had barely any alcohol, so he remembered the name clearly. "He was the boy we helped when you, me, and Naruto were sent to Hoshigakuer to try and discover the mysteries of their meteorite landing." The memory popped into Tenten's head. "Oh right. Guh, he was an asshole. I remember Naruto tried to beat him up on several different occasions." Shikamaru scoffed at that, saying, "Well then Naruto got what he wanted this time around because he kicked the guy's ass." "Really?" Lee asked, having gained more interest now that there was fighting involved. "Yeah." Shikamaru nodded, smiling. "The guy was about mid-Chunin level and Naruto manhandled him without even trying. It was quite the show." "Well, he did beat the leader of Akatsuki," Niji said, "and the people of Hoshigakuer, despite their mysterious peacock method, are not that powerful. It only took the three of us to beat their previous Hoshikage, and we were genin at the time. I'm not surprised Naruto had no trouble with him. Man, I just wish I was there to see it." Tenten whined. "I would have loved to see that arrogant prick get his blog knocked off." After their fight we went and ate a pretty extravagant restaurant. Shikamaru continued. "Gaara and his siblings came to see Naruto, so we got to catch up after he talked to the daimyos for a bit about helping Konoha get rebuilt." The Nara's last words spurred a new conversation. "So, Do you really think Naruto can get the village reconstructed before the Jounin vote? Kiba asked. Most ninja who were in a clan knew about it because their clan head, who was Kiba's mom, would be one of the people putting in their votes. Jounin vote? Sakura suddenly asked. Aside from her, Tenten and Lee were the only other ones who did not know about it. Watched had Niji clarified, when there is still a Hokage, but they are unable to occupy the seat for the time being and cannot or has not picked Ajikesser. A new Hokage is temporarily picked by the daimyo to take the place of the previous Hokage. That is until 2 months later when a Jounin vote is held. All the registered Jounin and clan heads cast their vote onto whether or not the new Hokage should stay in vice. If the person gets a majority vote, then they will be permanently instated as the next Hokage. And if the person doesn't? Lee asked, worried what would happen to Naruto-kun's dream if he did not win the Jounin vote. Then the previous Hokage will be put back into office when they get better. The interim Hokage will stay in office until then. However, the daimyo will then have the power to pick a new Hokage at any time to take the interim's place until the previous Hokage is healthy. If the Hokage does not get better within a year's time, then a new Hokage will be picked, and another Jounin vote will ensue. The cycle continues until we either have our old Hokage back, or a permanent new one. Niji finished, taking a sip of sake out of a saucer. So, what you're saying is if Naruto doesn't win the Jounin vote, then Tsunade Shishao will be reinstated when she wakes up from her coma. Sakura said, wanting to make sure she got everything right. Niji nodded, correct. If she is reinstated, then everything would go completely back to the way it was when she was first there. Shikamaru voiced his thoughts, meaning I would no longer be an advisor, and Tsunade's advisor, my dad, would take over. Sakura was slowly getting it, but had another question that Severa Lothars also had, so then what happens if Tsunade wakes up before the Jounin vote? Shikamaru glanced at Niji to see if he was going to explain the rest, but saw that the Hyuga was still taking some sips of alcohol, so he did it himself. The interim Hokage would remain in office until the vote. If he or she gets majority, then there is nothing the previous Hokage can do. They must step down and let the new Hokage take over. If the vote goes the other way, then Tsunade would just take back over. Everyone seemed to understand, taking in all the information slowly. It was silent for several minutes before Ino asked in the soberest tone she had used since getting there, so do you think he is going to win? She asked it more as a general question to everyone and not at an individual person. Everyone knew she was talking about the Jounin vote. They were all silent, thinking about what to say. This was kind of a sensitive subject because each one of them thought about Naruto in slightly different ways. If they said something that sounded wrong to another, there could be quite a bit of yelling going on. Shikamaru was going to say that Naruto should, but probably would not because of the fact that he was a Jinhiriki. However, he remembered that he was the only one of their generation to know about it. He assumed Sakura knew about the Kyuubi, but he did not want to take any unnecessary chances. I don't know. Kiba, being the brashest of them all, was the first to speak. I mean, I want to see that idiot be Hokage, but I mean Naruto's just that, an idiot. The Jounin are going to see that. Shikamaru was surprisingly the first to come to Naruto's aid. Naruto is a lot smarter than you think. He may not have the most common sense, sure, but his abilities to think on the fly are second to none even when compared to my clan's. Kiba gave the Nara a skeptical look, not really believing him. Honestly, the Inyazuka had not seen Naruto fight for some time now, so maybe the Uzumaki had improved. Yeah, whatever you say. Kiba is kind of right, Choji said, surprising a couple of right. We were talking about the guy who could not even create a simple clone in the academy, and tried taking the entrance exam 3 times only to fail. Choji went on to aid in before anyone could argue with him, but then again that was more than 4 years ago, and plenty CANC hang between then. A smile crossed Choji's lips as he finished with, and I recall him beating you in the Chunin exams. Kiba, so hate does that say about you? The Akimika's words earned him a couple of chuckles and a glare from Kiba. Shut up. Everyone knows that was just a fluke. Is that right? Niji spoke up, earning everyone's attention. He beat me in the Chunin exams too. Are you calling my loss a fluke, Oswell? Kibis Cheeks got redder than they already were. Oh come on. Have it a month to prepare for your battle. We had to fight right after going through the forest of death. Sakura decided to chime in at this part, saying, well, Naruto did fight Orochimaru of the Sun in head-to-head while we were in the forest. Did you fight any Sunin on your way to the tower? Kibis blush got a little redder, forgetting that Orochimaru had infiltrated the exam and attacked Team 7 so he could get to Sasuke. Well, no, we didn't but dash. Shikamaru also aided in. Naruto also told me that Orochimaru did something that screwed with his chakra network, and he didn't get it fixed till he ran into Jiraiya-sama. So Naruto was pretty much handicapped while fighting you and still won. Kiba was almost in tears that everyone was ganging up on him like this. Okay, I lost. Naruto beat me. I give up. Everyone laughed at Kiba's antics. The Inyazuka soon calmed down when Shikamaru passed him a bottle of sake to alleviate his pain. Several minutes of silence passed. Everyone waited for someone to say something about Naruto, the subject of his Hokage still fresh. Hinata opened her mouth to say something, but was beaten to it. He will do it. Sakura got out before Hinata could, getting everyone's attention. The Harino was smiling as she said, he is the number one, most surprising, knucklehead ninja after all. // The same time elsewhere, Naruto was behind his desk doing some more paperwork when he suddenly sneezed. He wiped his nose with his orange shirt sleeve before going back to work, thinking nothing about it. His personal Umbu team was back and hiding within the shadows off room. After Naruto and Sumaru's battle, the political leaders and their guard had gone to one of the fancier restaurants that had been reconstructed. The daimyos and cages enjoyed themselves reminiscing about old times. After the lunch, the three factions began their trip home. Sumaru wished him well, and said that he would get even stronger. Sumaru and his bodyguards left, while the sizable coalition of workers he had brought moved to the construction sites. They would soon get accommodated to the area, and stay in temporary living arrangements made for the foreigners helping with Konoha's reconstruction. Harina had secretly wanted some alone time with Naruto, but knew that she would have another opportunity now that the villages had a binding alliance. Gaara and his siblings stayed a little longer to chat with Naruto and Shikamaru, but eventually began their way home. Gaara had only come to see if what he had heard from the lightning ninja was real, so they needed to get home as quickly as possible. Naruto and Gaara had talked about the upcoming Cage Summit after Thedamios left, but wanted to stay on a lighter topic, so they did not talk long about it. Shikamaru had left after everyone else, saying he wanted to talk to his dad about being an advisor now. Naruto had gone back to his office after that and had been doing paperwork since then. He was going to finish up soon and head to his usual training spot, but stopped when there was a knock on the door. Come in, he commanded with a smile across his face, still happy about seeing his sand friends from earlier. The two elders, Homura and Koharu, came walking in. Naruto's mood and smile were instantly gone. How may I help you? Naruto started, being a tad more respectful this time around. We heard about the commotion at the main gate today, Koharu said, her frown stern as stone. I figured, Naruto said, knowing news in the village spread like wildfire. The daimyo of Kuma no Kuni challenged me to a fight, and he accepted. How reckless, Homura said offhandedly, making his presence known. Naruto's eyes narrowed ever so slightly as they turned toward the male elder. He was actually confused by their words. The Uzumaki had thought the two of them out of everyone would be the most pleased for sticking up for the village of Konoha, and demonstrating Jit's Hokage's powers. However, Naruto had learned from his time watching Sarutobi, that it was almost impossible to please the two elders. Naruto was glad his question came out in a more confused tone than an angry one. How so? You showed weakness, Homura clarified. No, I showed strength, Naruto defended. If I had not fought him, then it would put the idea in people's heads that cannot defend our village's honor. Koharu scoffed. On the contrary, young one, your actions did the opposite. What? Naruto asked dumbly, not understanding them. You easily succumbed to the will of a daimyo from a lesser village, Koharu explained. It puts your character and resolve into question. As Hokage, you should never submit to the will of others. It can almost be considered a cardinal sin, and you committed it. was not just the daimyo that wanted me to fight. Naruto argued, faintly furrowing his brow. Many of the civilians watching wanted the same thing. Civilians are not the ones that will be deciding whether or not you're main Hokage. Homura stated, silencing the young Hokage. The few jounin that were there to see your little spectacle had nothing good to say about it. They already know you are powerful, but they know nothing of your resolve. They would have thought more of you had you walked away. It would have showed them your will could not be broken so easily. You needn't worry about the civilians' opinion of you until after you have permanently become Hokage. Naruto eyed the two elders, taking in Homura's small rant gingerly. His eyes sharpened, and for a split second the two elders thought they saw the Sandaime Hokage sitting in that chair. How can you stand there and tell a Hokage not to care for his people as a whole, as a family? Homura and Koharu's heads slightly shifted up and their expressions softened. Naruto took this as their way of expressing shock. You seem to have us mistaken for someone else, Hokage-sama. Koharu said lightly, speaking of Danzu, believe it or not, we actually think you would make a good Hokage. Naruto gave her a skeptical look. He was finding it very hard to believe her words. You are young. Koharu went on to explain, however, we do know of your convictions to this village. Do you think we have turned a blind eye to the things you have done to protect this village? You defeated the current Kazekage and former Ichibai container 4 years ago, during the collaborated attack on us by Sound and Sand 4. You were the key factor in getting that stubborn 5th Hokage to return to the village. And you stopped us from total annihilation by the hands of Pain, the leader of Akatsuki. We know how good you are for this village. Naruto waited, wanting to see where she was going with this. He always enjoyed getting praised, but for some reason it felt rather weird hearing it from people he had thought hated his guts for who it was inside him. You just need a helping hand to guide you along. Koharu said, bringing up the crux of the discussion, and we are trying to play that part. Danzu is an old crone who believes violence and intimidation is the only answer. He was never meant for the position of Hokage. Tsunade, despite her appearance, is reaching her falling point. We know you do not want to hear it, but it is the truth. Her actions during the battle with Pain proved it. She is merely a shell of her former self. However, you are young. You have yet to be molded into your true potential. Let us aid you, and the position of Hokage will be yours for many decades to come. Naruto took her words in slowly, trying to put everything together in his head. It was a lot to take in. The Uzumaki had never known Thetwo very much in his younger years. He had met them on separate occasions when he was playing in the Hokage's office, and they showed up to talk to the Sarutobi. Koharu had attempted to talk to the boy once or twice, but Naruto remembered being quite introverted back then because of the treatment the civilians used to give him. Homura would merely glance at the blonde but would never try to strike up a conversation. Through the years after that their interactions all but vanished. Still, Naruto could tell that the two increased the third's stress levels anytime they came to the office. Because of that the Uzumaki, to this day, thought badly of them, not understanding why their presence had made Sarutobi feel such a way. After his first interaction with them, he understood. However, his attitude towards them was slowly changing, seeing a new side of them. Homura then said something that caught Naruto's ear, "Trust us." The Uzumaki had an unreadable expression as he looked back and forth at the two. After what felt like an eternity, Naruto sighed, nodding, "Okay. I will take your opinions on things more seriously and put more thought into them. You have my word." The two elders nodded, their expressions not changing even though they were happy. "That's good to hear." Homura began saying, "Now if we could move on to the discussion of the upcoming Cage Summit that is being held in Tetsunokuni, Land of Iron, at the end of the month." "No," Naruto said firmly, causing the elders to slightly raise their wrinkly eyebrows. They stayed quiet to let him elaborate. "We have talked enough for today. I have things I need to do. We can talk about the Cage Summit tomorrow. You two are dismissed." The two elders understood and nodded to show it. "Very well," Koharu said, turning along with Homura as they made their way out. "Until tomorrow, Hokage-sama." The elders left after that, leaving Naruto left in his chair looking down at his open hand. The Uzumaki stared at his hand for several minutes. He then looked at the one picture frame on his desk that held the laminated leaf within it. Naruto closed his hand into a fist and looked forward in determination. Naruto stood and grabbed his scroll. The Rokudaime left his office, heading for his usual training ground / Naruto stared out over the grassy plain that was slowly transforming thanks to all the damage his clones tended to do. The sixth had just arrived to his personal training grounds and put all of his weights back on, moments away from starting his training. The Uzumaki looked back down to his open hand. He concentrated on his hand. There was a spiral of chakra that started to form, and before long a perfect blue sphere of chakra was hovering in his hand. It was a little smaller than most of the ordinary resonance he created, but he was still able to it with just one hand. The spiraling chakra soon disappeared. It's still not enough, Naruto told himself, talking about his overall training in general. His strength had been increasing at a steady pace, but he needed more. He did not want to have to always rely on Mizaime like he did against Pain and Shiro. Naruto knew he had to bump his training up a notch. I have only 2 weeks left until the summit with 4 other cages. I need more power. I need to be the strongest. Naruto's pointer and middle fingers on each hand made a cross pattern. Tejuyokage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto called out his jutsu, a massive amount of smoke popping into existence and almost filling the entire area. Usually, Naruto had only used a couple hundred clones to train. However, now he was going with 1,000. All his clones looked to their originator as he let his sage scroll slip of his body and onto the ground, giving them all a cheeky grin. Let's get wild. //2. Weeks came and went. The day of departure was upon Naruto as he awoke within his bedroom. He no longer lived in his old apartment now that he was Hokage, so all of his stuff had been moved to the Hokage building. The small section of living space cut off in the building was not the most luxurious, but it was a big upgrade from his old place. The Uzumaki began his morning routine, and then began packing a backpack when he finished. After that he began putting on his regular attire. While he was putting on his sandals, he called down his Umbu, Tenha. 4 Umbu appeared, kneeled with their heads down in front of young Hokage. Naruto did not even send them a glance as he stood and walked toward his coat hanger. He grabbed the last piece of clothing he would need, his Hokage hat. He put it snugly on his head, letting the cloth that connected to it settle softly on the broad off-eyes shoulders. He spoke while reaching for the door, "You are all dismissed till I get back." They vanished as quickly as they came. A little later Naruto found himself standing near the open main gates. Naruto looked back to his people who congregated near the gates. There were a lot of people who turned out for his departure wishing him the best of luck and to be safe. He saw several of his peers in the crowd, but did not get the time to personally say goodbye to them. Naruto stood with his hands on his backpack straps. Naruto stood with his 2 bodyguards, Neji on one side and Sai on the other. Sai was happy to accept the offer from Naruto, unaware that the sixth had ulterior motives. Usually only Jounin or higher were supposed to be the Hokage's bodyguards on events like these, but Naruto knew about Sai's route training, so there was no problems with Uzumaki or the elders. Sai had strangely not heard from Danzo for quite some time, so the artist saw no problems with going to the summit. His route leader probably would want some information from it too, so Sai figured he was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. He was getting to be better friends with Naruto, while continuing to serve Danzo. Neji was elated when Naruto first asked him via Chunin Messenger to be his bodyguard, because the Hyuga would finally get the chance to be around one of the people he considered a close friend. There were several Hyuga elders that were displeased to hear that Rokudaime had picked a branch house member instead of a main house one, and had personally requested meetings with the Hokage to persuade Naruto otherwise. Hinata, after getting info from her father, told Neji that Naruto told all the biased Hyuga elders when they could produce a main house member that was stronger than Neji, he would maybe consider it. The elders never came back to the Hokage, which surprised Neji. He knew that he was probably the strongest Hyuga there was, right after Hayashi, but the elders were too blinded by their hatred to realize that. Neji did not think into it, just glad he was going to be around Naruto for the time being. The Rokudaime Hokage turned toward his people and smiled brightly, waving at them one last time. The Uzumaki whirled around, walking through the giant gates and away from his village and home. Neji and Sai followed closely behind. Naruto's expression became hardened, his smile falling and his eyes sharpening. The sixth Hokage knew this cage summit was going to change the world, but he did not know if it was for better or worse. There were going to be some dark forces moving about now that all cages were converging at one point. He did not know what Obito had planned, but the Uzumaki could feel that something was going to go down. All Naruto did know was that no matter what happened, the safety of his village would be prioritized above all else. An image of Sasuke appeared in Naruto's mind, and a bad feeling coursed throughout him. He prayed to God that the Uchiha would not play into Obito's hands so easily. He hoped that Sasuke would not do something so foolish as to attack the cage summit, even with Obito's help. Konoha was now Naruto's most precious thing, and its safety came before anything else, no matter what had to be done, even if it meant throwing his heart away and killing his best friend.